Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer for Lipstick Generation.
I'm Steve. I'm the bassist for Sane.
And welcome to the Lipstick Panel. Today on the Lipstick Panel, we are doing another Kiss solo album. Because, look, it's really easy to book guests for these episodes. Yes, we're doing Frehley's Comet / it's Ace Frehley's second solo album / the Frehley's Comet debut album. And we've got some great guests with us. Hey, you heard that laughing in the background? We've got someone live in the studio. What? Hey, it's Aaron Camaro.
What am I doing here?
Who let him in?
I went wrong way down a one-way street, and this is where I end up.
This is the man who's most famous for doing 2000 Man at Rock and Pod, but also famous for hosting the Decibel Geek podcast. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
I'm glad you got those in order. Those are the most important things.
Priorities.
We know our priorities. And hey, speaking of Rock and Pod, we have some friends of the podcasting community here today. We've got Bill Elam, longtime listener, first-time caller. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, it's great to be here, guys.
And hey, we've got someone who decided to show up for the podcast, Andy Schaal. Decided to show up because his buddy John was too busy for us.
Yes, I like to say I'm the short man's John Lamoureux instead of the corner.
Amen.
But I'm taller than Greg, so I got that going for me.
That's not saying much.
Greg is the short man's Andy Schaal.
Right. I'm the short man's Ronnie James Dio.
Nice.
So yeah, we're talking about Frehley's Comet. Ace Frehley, beloved musician by many, kind of taking some heat on the internet currently as the time of this recording, which won't be timely because we record months in advance. I don't know, this might come out in June. I don't know when this episode's coming out.
Well, maybe he'll do it again.
Was he to the Deads or something?
No, he's...
they're a treasure.
Ooh,
They're pretty great.
Just hide your water bottles.
Right.
Ooh.
Hide your hearts, hide your water bottles.
Oh, dear.
But yeah, I think it's best we just go around the panel, talk about our history with Ace Frehley and this album in particular.
Wait, hold on. Do we need to clarify? Did Ace Frehley roofie the Deads or something?
No, Ace Frehley was just a dick to a sound guy recently.
In the future, he will. About a month from now, and this will be hot topic.
Well, it's like when we did that Vinnie Vincent episode, and we said there's probably a new Vinnie Vincent controversy by the time this episode comes out.
We'll just, we'll just go back in and edit us bantering about whatever Ace Frehley has done right before this episode comes
geez,
out.
Ace, I can't believe you did that.
What did he do, Greg? Edit.
Edit.
Turn the fucking guitar up.
But yeah, let's go around the panel and talk about our history with Ace Frehley in this album. I want to start with Aaron, the man who came to the studio, brought the CD in person. What's your history with the Spaceman and this album?
When I was a little kid, I was listening to Kiss way before I should have. I'm talking a little kid. My aunts and uncles had the records laying around. I would see them and be like, wow, what is this? I love Star Wars. I love comic books, and so this is something I got to listen to. Put it on, blows my mind. So I'm a little bitty kid getting Kiss records for Christmas. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. And so as I get older, I kind of drift away from Kiss a little bit. When I say older, I'm talking about, 8, 9 years old.
Hardened old man at the age of 9.
Right.
I've been listening to this band since I was 7 and know what kind of bullshit they are.
Even
you can't say those things about teens. Mom says I'm too young.
But it got to the point where, I was so into Kiss. I got back into them again when I was around probably 10 or 11 years old. And I was
Mom
so
says
into
I'm old
them.
enough to hit on teenagers now.
This is where you're going to learn your best pickup lines. Listen to these albums. So I'm really into Kiss, but my Uncle Bruce is still getting Kiss records, and he brings around Lick It Up, and he brings around Animalize, and I'm like, where's Ace Frehley? What's going on here? And I was always confused. I saw the Creatures in the Night album cover with Bruce Kulick on it, and it's like, well, who's this guy? Where's Ace Frehley? And the thing is, back then, nobody knew where Ace Frehley was. He just kind of dropped off the map. So I'd go to my Uncle Bruce and be like, where's Ace Frehley? He's not in Kiss anymore. Why is he not in Kiss? Nobody knew. We didn't have the internet back then. You couldn't just look this shit up. So it was a mystery for a long ass time. Where did my favorite guitar player go? Why isn't he in Kiss? I don't know. So I would, at 12 years old, go to the mall with my parents and run right to the Camelot Music and go right to the A's and right to the F's just to double, cover myself. And every time I would look through the albums to see if there was an Ace Frehley record, and there never was. But one day something happened. 2 things happened. It made me into Aaron Camaro. First thing is I'm looking through the records in the rock section. Mm-hmm. And this beautiful teenage girl comes up to me, and she's totally 80s up. You know, she's got her hair. I mean, just the perfect. It was like Lita Ford walking up to me in the mall.
Damn.
What are you doing? I said, I'm looking for records. What are you looking for? I'm looking for Ace Frehley. And she goes, hey, come here, to her boyfriend. And over walks this dude. I mean, he could have been Chris Holmes back in the day, this big old rock and roll dude with long hair and earrings and a ripped up denim jacket. And this guy's the coolest dude I ever seen in my life. And he's massive. And she's like, look at this little kid. Yeah. He's looking for an Ace Frehley record. No shit. Wow. You are one cool little kid. And I kept going. I couldn't believe it happened to me. And they wander off and I keep going and I'll be damned. Right there at the top in big orange letters, Ace Frehley. Pull it out, Frehley's Comet. I can't believe it. After all these years, I found him. He was right there. And so I begged my parents for the money. They gave it to me. I brought that album home. Changed my life. Ace was back. That's my story. Not bad, huh?
That's
That's why when you asked me, I was like, I gotta do this one.
I'm feeling magic in the room.
Yeah.
That was the most carefully narrated anyone's history has been on this podcast.
Because it's just burnt into my psyche. I mean, I'll never forget that day. Never. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Couldn't have done it without all your help.
Wow.
Also, I had to look up what Camelot music is, because I'd never heard that name before.
It was basically like, I guess, like a northern...
It was
Sam Goody or
like a Tower
Records
the
or whatever.
Ohio version of it, eventually got
an interesting thing
bought by
I
FYE.
had just heard recently that Camelot Music eventually morphed into FYE. I didn't know that.
Well, that's where I got a lot of my Kiss CDs from. So, I'm following in your footsteps, man.
Awesome.
Well, it got merged into FYE with every mall store owned by Trans World Entertainment, according to Wikipedia.
And it's all dead now.
There you go.
Yeah. So, hey guys, let's go to Suncoast and get some anime DVDs. Sorry, VHSs.
So, who wants to follow that?
Bill.
Yeah, Bill wants to follow that.
I'll take that lead. When Aaron Camaro was a cute little kid, I was a chubby little teenager. And everything was pretty much following along the same parallels, except I didn't have a cool Uncle Bruce. I had a really cool friend named Eric. Who just recently passed away, rest in peace. But he had a cool cousin that delivered rock and roll over to him. So I got into Kiss that way, and then dove into the magazines and stuff all the way up into the 80s, and then all of a sudden it's the same thing. Where's Ace? Ace disappeared, and I can remember even before the record. And Aaron probably remembers this too, is when Washburn put out the AF-40 guitar and they had a picture of Ace Frehley without makeup standing on a stack of amps.
Yeah, in a weird red jumpsuit.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, and that was even like a year or two before the album. And it's like, well, what's going on? The guitar looked stupid, but
yeah,
I wanted to know what was going on with Ace. And basically started following things, and thank God for Circus Magazine, because Circus was the happening thing before Metal Edge happened. So Hit Parader and Circus Magazine, they started giving more updates on Ace as things got started about 85, 86. And then, finally saw the ads for the album to come out and was, racing for the store the day it came out. It's probably one of the first new cassettes I had ever bought when it came out. And I've been I've never wavered as a fan. I've never faded out. They kind of distanced themselves, between the Elder and all that stuff. But I mean, I've been a consistent Kiss fan since probably 78.
Rock and roll.
So, Andy, how about you? What's your, history with Kiss, Ace Frehley, this album in particular, if you have any?
Sure. So I really didn't get into Kiss until I was like a freshman in high school in '88 when Smashes, Trashes, and Hits came out. And I saw them on Geraldo or something. And, they were a great band. Didn't really get into them, though, until like the mid-'90s reunion tours. So like when Kiss Unplugged came out, that's when I really started to go a little deeper into Kiss. But Frehley's Comet never is really, I've never really had the ambition to go back and listen to it. So Thursday was the first day I listened to this album.
Wow. Wow.
Just I like, as far as Ace as a singer, he's not the greatest singer. I love Shock Me. I love Two Sides of the Coin. New York Groove, all great songs. But I've just never had the wherewithal to go back and listen to this album. I mean, I remember in like junior high, the guys were talking about it, like, "Hey man, Ace has got a album out called Frehley's Comet." So it was definitely, in my wheelhouse that it was out there, in the late '80s. But I just wasn't into it.
That ought to be a fresh perspective.
Speaking of people who only listen to this album once,
what
Steve,
kind of show is this?
Yeah,
I'm on an Ace Frehley show. I'm an Ace Frehley expert, I'll have you know, and I feel diminished coming on this show with 3 guys that have listened to this album a total of maybe 6 or 7 times between them.
3 guys who've listened to this album a total of 3 times.
I'm right
Thank you
there
very
with
much.
you, Aaron. I got your back, brother.
So we got all sorts of perspective.
I've done this album once a month for 20 years, so
Nice.
I'm right there with you, Aaron.
This
Now,
is,
I want to hear Steven's story next.
it's
Because I wanna see it.
surreal to be on.
I want to eat.
Have another guest to give me a run for my money on like lack of expertise on a Kiss album. Now, I waited until Friday for my single listen of this album.
Wow.
Nice try, Andy.
So it's fresher on my mind, Andy. I'm
Yes.
probably slightly more expert than you this time. But yeah, so I remember when I first started listening to Kiss back in the heady days of early 2018. And then Greg made me listen to several Kiss-related albums a month since then. And then I listened to the Ace Frehley solo album, one time this week. I don't know, Ace isn't... No, Ace probably... In the context of the band, Ace is not my least favorite member. Outside of the band, he probably is, just because I feel like overall he is the most... he comes off as the most wannabe Paul Stanley, but without the vocal talent.
Wow.
Ouch! I mean,
Paul Stanley is wannabe, Paul Stanley solo is wannabe Kiss, and Gene Simmons and
Peter
Criss are just doing their own thing,
Right,
which is
yes.
different from Kiss and sometimes much better. But just Ace Frehley is just I'm trying to do the same thing, but I can't hit the high notes.
damn.
Wow.
So here's the thing.
This is off to just a great start, guys. Wow.
Steve is incredibly harsh, but I can't refute anything he says.
I refute everything he said.
Greg, what's your history with this album?
Okay, so I
No
think
shit.
I think I've got sort of a
Also,
new...
my mind is a little blown at this $2,500 Washburn. I just went on.
I think
reverb
it's a
and-
sweet looking guitar, though. I love that guitar. It's just crazy looking.
It's pretty goofy looking. It's kind of awesome, but $2,500 for a Washburn.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
I can't imagine they made that many of them, so it's probably kind of a rarity to find one nowadays.
Probably.
Well, and there's actually a red one too.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I never knew that.
I've seen red ones on collector pages.
That's wild. That's got to be double rare.
So I'll go next/last with my history with Ace Frehley and this album. I became a Kiss fan in 2004 when Tommy Thayer blew my mind live on stage. I'm like, man, the Spaceman sure is great.
Wow.
But after seeing Kiss live, I went and discovered the back catalog, discovered the Ace Frehley 78 solo album, which at the time was my favorite of the 4 solos, because that's the one that rocks the most and sounds
Yeah.
most like Kiss.
Yeah, totally.
Before I became a mature adult and realized that Peter's was the best. But,
Jeez.
in high school, there was a lot less rockers growing up than, in your guys' generation.
Right.
And so us rock kids were really, close together. And so we all would, coordinate our record collections and sort of share our music because there was the CD era. And when you're a broke high schooler, you can't afford to buy every CD yourself. So I was the friend that bought the Vinnie Vincent CDs, and there was a different friend who bought the Ace Frehley CDs.
Oh, okay.
And so I bought, a couple Ace Frehley solo CDs, but this was one of the ones where I didn't buy it myself because my buddy bought it.
Okay.
And so, but I was very familiar with the record, like knew it front to back in high school, and I didn't love it. I liked it a lot and recognized it was very good, but it wasn't like a monumental record for me. Not one of my favorite records in the Kiss catalog. And so revisiting it for this podcast, I still think it's very strong, and there are certain songs on it I love, but for me it's not like an essential record for me, even though like I grew up with it, liked it a lot, heard a lot. There's only maybe like, 4 or 5 songs I would say are like, these are essentials. Can't live without them. And then there's others where I'm like, these are very good, but they're comparable to a lot of other stuff that was out at the time that was also very good. And so I'm a little bit more in the middle on it, where like part of me wants to like it more and part of me wants to like it less, especially like with, the stuff of Ace, like, going on, like, recently. I'm like, man, like, really thinking about it, Ace Frehley's kind of a dick. And I shouldn't be a fan of him as a person. But as a musician, he made some really bitchin' tunes.
Oh, yeah. But he's never been a role model.
He's never been a role model.
Never.
I, fun fact, got kicked out of an Ace Frehley show once.
Really?
Which I think...
For being a role model. He was trying to mentor some kids.
Hey, you, Curly! I see you down there being a role model. Get him out of here.
No, I snuck backstage at an Ace Frehley show.
Yeah?
So I thought to myself, fuck, Ace would sneak backstage at a show and not care.
Totally.
And
Ace would sneak backstage at an Ace Frehley show.
Right, and so...
Who are you? Get out of here.
And so, yeah, I got my ass thrown out into an alley at an Ace Frehley show at the tender age of 17.
Wow.
But,
Ace would appreciate this.
Yeah, but, there's... he's also, the guy who is, like, admitted to mugging people, not showing up for sound check, and then bitched that the sound wasn't very good.
Right,
So as a musician, and, like, a lot of these musicians who I grew up as fans of, like, we're low-level industry, but we've done enough gigs where, like, I've seen the sausage being made, and I know, like, how to conduct yourself. And so a lot of these musicians who I was a fan of growing up, I don't cut the same slack for their BS because I've been in similar positions and know how to behave and how to conduct yourself. I know to show up for sound check. I know to be professional. I know that if someone buys a CD, you wait 3 weeks to ship it out. Sorry, Bill.
Oh, that was you?
But I got stickers.
Yeah, we got stickers and a bonus CD to make up for it.
And they're wonderful.
But there's a certain level of professionalism that I've like learned to conduct myself with and expect. And so when Gene and Paul say I don't want to play with Ace because he's drugged up and doesn't show up on time, I've worked with drugged up guitar players who don't show up on time. That's annoying, and I'm in this weird state of conflict with how I feel about Ace Frehley. But at the end of the day, I think this is a great record. He's made some great music, and so whatever flaws I might have with him as an individual, I can't knock the art.
Well, I'll make you a deal. If you can separate yourself emotionally from Ace Frehley enough to give this album an honest judgment, I will separate my emotions from Ace Frehley to give this album an honest review.
Well, let's do it together. And I think I was able to do it with my ranking, which was... this was a difficult ranking to do, and I will say out of all of the rankings we've done on the show, this is the one I am most underwhelmed by, and I think the rest of you are wrong.
As Baco would say, of course you do.
On the subject of breaking down your separation from Ace Frehley, Ace Frehley did sneak into his show. He snuck into a Jimi Hendrix show,
right,
and jumped in with the roadies, and he said he set up Mitch Mitchell's drum set. So, but he didn't manage to get thrown out. Now, see, if you would have just started carrying gear, you would have stayed back.
You started working right away, you'd have fit right in.
The thing is, when I got back there, I made the mistake of getting back there early, and Ace always shows up late.
Yeah.
So I was hanging out with, like, his band at the time, which probably would have been Richie Scarlett. This was, like, 2007, 2008. And so, but then they all went to the dressing room, and I was just sort of hanging out, and that's when, like, security's like, hey, wait a minute, are you supposed to be here? And I'm like, fuck. But yeah, let's get into this ranking and your guys' wrong opinions about this album.
Did you add them all up like we did with Animalize?
That's the format of the show. We do that every time, buddy.
Yeah, right on. Awesome.
Has this math been double checked?
It's been double checked, triple checked. That is why I'm so disappointed with the outcome of this.
Nice.
He uses a spreadsheet which does all the math for him.
Yeah, I started using a spreadsheet like 10 episodes in. I'm like, oh, this is way easier. Why didn't I do this before?
Yeah, but I just listened to one not too long ago where there was 3 of you, and there was one miscalculation that changed the entire order of the entire ranking.
What episode was that?
Throw a flag.
I can't remember. I remember you and Steven were on it.
Well, that narrows it down.
That one.
That narrows it down to every episode except the Marvel Cinematic Universe episode.
Yep.
And the math was right on for that one.
That was Ant-Man, the number 4 movie in the MCU.
I'll take your guys' word for that.
But yeah, coming in as the least best song on Frehley's Comet, according to this panel, we have Fractured 2.
Yeah, I mean, it is just the instrumental, but
I'm honestly surprised with you guys. Like, I would have thought that the Ace fans would have been like, yeah, the guitar solo, that's the good one.
Well, it's the sequel to Fractured Mirror, which I think nostalgia helps Fractured Mirror a lot. I think if you're a kid and you don't know how to play guitar and don't know how to make music, Fractured Mirror is really awesome.
Yeah.
But if you understand how composition works, Fractured Mirror is this is just the same thing for 7 minutes. Dynamics, bro. And so Fractured, but I've met so many great guitar players that I was inspired to play guitar because of Fractured Mirror. Phil Schaus, Jeremy Asbrock,
Yeah.
they're like, Fractured Mirror changed my life.
Yeah, nice.
And so this is the sequel to Fractured Mirror,
Right.
and it sounds a lot like Fractured Mirror.
Greg, did I give Fractured Mirror top ranks in our solo album?
You might have, I don't
I rank that
remember.
as my top song. Do I like
That sounds
Ace?
about right.
Do I like Ace Frehley instrumentals? Is that a thing?
Yeah,
I
you,
think
you
so.
like the one that he didn't sing on.
Oh yeah, that does sound about right. I'm also the person who ranked this highest of everybody else on the panel.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't have it dead last, but I had it at number 9, kind of down there. Like I said, it's the instrumental created by Ace and John, and it's the trippiest of all the Fractured Mirrors, the trilogy or whatever
I
he's
think
up
there's
to
4 now.
Yeah. And
It's like that Unforgiven series. They just keep going.
We'll have to rank all the Fractureds on this podcast, Steve.
oh boy, it's got one thing about this album is you can tell Ace Frehley's playing with sound effects a lot. And this has got some kind of sweeping space sounds intermingled through it. But I think the coolest thing about Fractured 2
Very on brand.
is that the drumming of Anton Fig, especially towards the end of the song, if you really listen to it, he's doing some crazy shit with his cymbals. Like, I was listening back to it this week, and I haven't listened to it in a long time. But I really wanted to give it a good listen for this. And man, there's some stuff going on deep layered wise inside of Fractured 2 that I don't think I ever really noticed before.
It's sort of interesting. I think because of nostalgia, I like Fractured Mirror better. But I think if I had paid more attention to this at the time, I think this is probably better than Fractured Mirror. I think it changes up the dynamics a bit more. I think there is more stuff going on. But I think because, there is something to be said about when you purchase a CD yourself, you love it more.
Right.
And so because my buddy was the one who bought this CD and I had the burned copy, I didn't love it as much as some of the other albums. And
as opposed to if you'd have found it the way I found it.
Right, as
it
opposed
would
to I
mean
found
so
it your
much
way.
more, yeah.
And so when I listen to it, it's the last song on it, and it's part of at that point, I think 3 of the Fractured songs were out, so I was already familiar with it as an entire piece. And so this was oh, that's the middle one, whatever, I don't really care about it as much.
Uh-huh.
And so
the second episode's almost always the best one. Empire Strikes Back, Greg?
that's episode 5, sir.
The Last Jedi?
Okay, that is the best one.
It all ties together with the space theme.
But I would say that it's a competent instrumental. It's a good continuation of the Fractured series. But I think, I ranked it last because it's the least essential for my playlist of these. It's it's good. I would not say it's bad at all, but it doesn't blow me away. And Fractured Mirror, the original, didn't blow me away either.
Right.
But also, I listen to a lot of instrumental music, so I'm judging it on a different scale. As a guy who listens to a lot of video game soundtracks, and the Fractured Mirror series kind of sounds like it fits in that style of music. So, but it has less dynamic shifts. It has a less engaging melody than a lot of that stuff. So I'm looking at it as a fan of that genre of music and saying, oh, this is lower tier for that genre of music. But in the rock genre, it stands out and it's very different. But to me, I'm very familiar with it, so it doesn't strike me as that different.
Gotcha.
So, Steve, yeah, you ranked this the highest. You
Yeah.
love Ace Frehley as a musician.
I mean, I guess he's pretty good at guitar. No, like I think this was just a better constructed and more interesting instrumental piece than most of the rest of the instrumental work on the album was. Like, a lot of the solos were pretty, generic 80s wankery, whereas this, was fairly. I'm gonna keep saying mean things about your guys' favorite bands. But yeah, so I lost my train of thought.
Ace Frehley, he's generic wankery.
Yeah,
wanking off.
Yeah,
You were talking about the solos
Yeah.
in the piece.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep saying mean things about your guys' favorite artists, but just
I'm out of here.
I feel like Slash had a really good thing that he said about this, that he really doesn't like when somebody goes into a solo without a plan, where they're clearly just trying to hit a whole bunch of notes. He really likes structured solos that, have somewhere that they're going. And I feel like some of the solos in this album succumb to the former, whereas Fractured 2 is clearly a, properly structured composition with, a point to it. That's really more backhanded than I'm intending it to be. I didn't hate anything on this album. I didn't give anything less than 5 out of 10, but it's fine. This is decent instrumental.
And for clarity, when Steve gives something 5 out of 10, that's him being extra harsh on the judging.
Right.
Because otherwise, almost every song on that would be a 6 or 7 out of 10.
Right, almost everything's 6s and 7s.
I'm kind of stunned right now because that sounds like about the best thing that Steven's ever said about Ace Frehley, period.
Right?
Yeah, we should take it while it's hot.
It's no leave that thing alone, but it's fine.
I'll buy that for $1.
So, Andy, you ranked this the next highest. Why is this great but not as great as Steve thinks it is?
So I gave it a 7. I just think it's a solid instrumental, and that's about it. Just doesn't really blow me away, but it's a solid instrumental track.
And
maybe that's the thing, is the two of us just ranked it as fine, and everybody else was like, yeah, it's also fine, but not as good as the brilliance of the rest of the album.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to have some things to say that you not like, guys.
Bill, you ranked this right in the middle of all of us ranking this at the bottom. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 because, and the context has a lot to do with it too, where me and Aaron have been listening to Ace Frehley a lot longer than anybody else. But Fractured Mirror was created when you didn't have guitar solo songs. I mean, instrumentals. Now instrumentals are somebody wants to throw down a drum pattern and solo for 4.5 minutes over it, and everybody else is supposed to keep up, including the bass player when they're wanting them to play 30-second notes through an entire number. But
Speedball Jam,
I look at Fractured Mirror, the original, as more of a soundscape kind of thing. It's kind of making a painting with small parts. And I know Greg talked about the repetitive notes of it. I'd like to mention a classical composer named Steve Reich, who his particular piece, music for 18 musicians. Now, if you can't handle the 4.5 minutes of Fractured Mirror, music for 18 musicians is 1 hour, 5 minutes and 56 seconds long. And it starts off with pling, pling, pling. And then it goes to another, and it goes from instrument to instrument to instrument to where they're all playing the same repetitive piece over and over and over again, but it may be 4 notes. And then it just builds and builds and builds. And that's kind of on a much smaller scale what Fractured Mirror is. But then Fractured 2, I like the fact that it just seemed, it's almost as like Fractured Mirror just blends right into it. It's in the same key. It's kind of in the same tempo and the timbre and everything like that. So they really work together as a pair if you play them side by side, which I have done. And, but then again, I think that falls off on the third one in the quantum or whatever you want to call it, because I think Fractured 3 sucks, but anyway. But I think the first two, and it's just kind of like, it just brings back the hints of yeah, you remember that cool album with my face on it back from 78? Yeah, I'm still that guy. So, and that's why I ranked it at 8.
Wait, legally, is he allowed to say that's my face on that album? Or does the band own the trademark on that design?
He was at the time because he licensed it out, remember? So he's licensed it since then, so.
that is legally in my face because I paid the people money to use it. That would have to be so frustrating.
No, he licensed it to Kiss to where Kiss is paying him.
Oh,
So
nice.
I think that's what buys. I think that's what puts gas in the tank, and maybe buys an extra bag of donuts or something somewhere. But yeah, he claims that he licensed it to Kiss.
That's
for
the
use,
career path.
Whereas
I wanna
Peter
have.
Criss outright sold it.
So like be in a band with me, get kicked out, but like me license your face.
Right, just like have to pay me residuals on something dumb.
I mean,
Well,
look,
and really, when it comes to big business, everything's like that.
Yeah.
That's like there's a guy who'll do a startup, bring it into a $1 million company, and then a big conglomerate comes in and says, "Well, we want to acquire your business," and they usually end up working it out to where it's like, okay, Papa John's is the first one coming to mind, but I don't want to use that. But I mean, they'll basically say, "Sure, you can take over all the operations and everything like that, but for every pie you throw out the door, I get a little something from it," and that's the way business really does work today.
I mean, the startup I was with back in 2011, that's what the conditions we sold it under.
Yeah.
We should have sold it for cash because it turns out we got a little bit lied to about the intention of how many websites they were going to sell, but oh well.
Wow, we went from pizza to startups to classical musician composers.
it's a
What's
lot.
going on
It's a
around
lot
here?
from an instrumental track,
See,
Well,
it
and that's
does
the
have
thing is,
magical effect.
right?
I don't know what it
That's
is.
the thing is, Fractured 2 brings you into that critical thinking to where everything
Yes.
kind of relates on one side or the other.
Yes.
Well, hey, let's move on to the next song in the ranking. We've got yeah, that is a great transition. Next up on the list, we've got "We Got Your Rock."
Let's see. Where did I
Wrong.
put that?
Well, yeah, Bill, you rate this the highest. Bill, tell us why you're wrong about this track.
Well, I'm absolutely wrong about this track
Transition.
because back to the context, like me versus Aaron, even though it was all going on at the same time, I was 17 years old when this album came out. And this, along with another song we'll mention later, is some of the best cock rock you'll ever hear. It's got the groove, it's got the beat, it's got the straight four on the floor kind of beat to it, and it's all talking about getting laid. Come on, bring it on, honey. You think you can handle this? And that's just, and that still brings out the 17-year-old me.
Right on.
Yeah, I think another thing to consider with my context of viewing this album is that I also first encountered this album in the internet age. So I was much more familiar with the personnel and how the songs got brought into this album. And so a lot of these songs were songs brought by outside songwriters to fill up the album because Ace didn't have enough strong material to make an entire album based upon the songs he had at the time. So this was a song, I think, brought by a band called Sin that, recorded the song, and then Ace changed up a couple lyrics.
Right, that's Rick Fox's old band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, it's a competent hair metal song, and Ace actually delivers a good vocal. The band is playing well, but I think there's just... I feel like a lack of, sincerity in being engaged with the music. I feel like there are certain tracks where Ace feels really engaged, like he really believes in it. And this feels like someone brought him a song to fill out the album because he didn't have enough songs, and they do a good job with it. It's competent hair metal, and I love hair metal.
Right.
That's some of my favorite music. That's my bread and butter. I know that genre like the back of my hand. What the fuck is that? Anyway, but I'm very much a hair metal guy. I very much like this style of music, but the swagger to it feels like it's not what Ace Frehley does. He's more of a laid-back groove kind of person. He's not that hair metal arena, get your fist in the air rocker.
He's
always
not Gene Simmons.
He's not Gene Simmons. He's always been a bit more laid-back. So to have Ace do a song like this, he's doing it well, but it doesn't come off as necessarily natural. And me knowing the context behind of how it was brought into the session makes me listen to it and be like, yeah, this is good hair metal done well, but view me as being essential hair metal when I love so many different hair bands, and I can find other music that's very similar, but done by someone who believes in it more, who feels more natural with it, who does a better vocal. Like, it's still a great hair metal song, and it's still great on this album, but it doesn't blow me away and be like, yeah, I love this. It's like, yeah, it's good.
See, and I can totally relate to that, and I can explain to you why it is. Back in those days, you had all the magazines, like Bill was telling us about, and the shittiest thing about being an Ace Frehley fan was there was never really a good picture of the guy. Ace Frehley's not a good-looking dude, and especially back in the 80s when this stuff was coming out. He looked rough. He was rough-looking back then. So you'd have the pictures of the guys from Poison, and they look fantastic. And
right.
Bon Jovi, the women are going crazy for him. And
Winger,
all these other, the little pre-Winger, but getting there.
Right.
But you get the idea. And then it'd always be a picture of Ace Frehley with his face all scrunched up, looking like some kind of Shar-Pei poodle because he's doing the guitar solo. And they always put the ugliest pictures of Ace Frehley. But Ace Frehley wanted people to know that he was sexy too. And even though he wasn't as pretty as Bon Jovi, he knew what the ladies really wanted. They wanted to be rocked. And he had their rock. And let me ask you, do you know where they had it? Right here.
Right here.
Right here. Ace Frehley's got the rock. I like this song. I ranked it number 5. I think it's hard rocking. It's got an awesome solo to it. Again, I always think back to this era. And Ace Frehley had a great band back then. The other guys, it's always going to be Ace Frehley's the focal point of it all.
Right.
But, man, he had an awesome band. John Regan, a fantastic bassist. You got freaking Anton Fig on drums. He's one of the greatest drummers of all time. And Todd Howarth, he was corbeting for Cheap Trick. You know what I mean when I say corbeting?
Yeah.
Behind the curtain guy.
Yeah, hiding in the shadows and doing the heavy lifting.
Right. Too cool looking to be up on stage.
Is corbeting a word now?
It's corbeting, yeah, totally.
Yeah, look it up on Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
He was corbeting behind the curtain for Cheap Trick, and so he brings a lot of those sensibilities in.
Or Tysoning, as it were.
Yep, Tysoning could be, yeah.
Much love to Gary Corbett.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think it's a good rocking song. Ace's playings on it is just awesome. I think what it was, I read something about that song was written for the intent for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts to do it, but they didn't end up doing it, so Ace got his hands on it or something like that.
Genius says it was written as an anthem for the band, and possibly intended to be the title of the album.
Wow.
Interesting. That's not an artist I would have expected for this song. Steve, you're a hair metal expert.
Dig into a Runaways album.
Well, yeah, the Coopersmith guy who co-wrote it, I think he worked on a number of who did he work with? I'm looking at the list of songs used in Shrek for Marty Coopersmith. Yeah, he worked on he co-wrote Bad Reputation, apparently.
Okay.
And personally, from a guy who was 17 at the time, if I would have heard Joan Jett singing this song, I would have totally lost my shit.
Yeah,
I would
nice.
have been. It was just like the hormones would be exploding.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
hopefully, I think Ace's intention was to get the ladies to do the same thing for him.
I guess I don't know if this is the song that gets the ladies worked up.
It gets the dudes worked up about the ladies,
Yeah, this is the song.
And it shows the world that, hey, I might look ugly in every photograph I'm pictured in, but I'm a stud. I'm Ace fucking Frehley. I get some tail.
But so as a guy who's been doing music for a while and watches the crowd response to songs, the songs that make the ladies go wild are not like the get your fist in the air and rock and talk about how cool you are. The
Kid
song,
Rock based a career on it.
Right. But the song that made the chicks go wild at our shows was the power pop song.
Right.
So it's as someone who's no, this isn't how you get the chicks to get excited.
No, that's not how you get the chicks to get excited.
I guess. So I'm a different man than Ace Frehley.
Exactly.
You're prettier than Ace.
And it falls back to the context, too.
Right. I am prettier than Ace Frehley, so there's that.
I mean, and you're taking it, you were born in 1990, correct?
Right. So chicks
Okay.
born after
That's-
1990 might like power pop more than we got you right.
Right, there you go.
I was going to concerts in '86, and chicks were digging this. You know, you see a video where they're like, oh, look, that one girl just popped her top off. When you actually went to shows, it didn't matter if it was Kiss, Judas Priest, even heavier bands, even Yngwie Malmsteen. You had 20 to 30 chicks that were just flipping tops, you know, and I mean, there were typically women who got worked up just by this kind of, you call it hair metal, I call it cock rock, because it was definitely, you know, sexually influenced in nature.
The number of women
he
who
was there.
the number of women who you know, exposed their tops as Joe Lynn Turner sang about Sweet Surrender are numbers I can't even fathom.
I think last time I
And
got
it's-
flashed
and
at a
that's
show,
true.
it was
I mean-
during a Jane's Addiction song.
Wow.
It's what women were into in 2009, I guess.
Ugh.
But you could
See, I'm with you
could
guys.
chalk
I was
that
too
up
young
to-
for all that shit. I didn't get to go to concerts like that back in the early 80s
Don't-
or mid 80s when
have
this
seen-
stuff was happening.
I have seen many a tit at concerts.
You're not supposed to be bird watching, Greg.
I'm not even. Look. This was before I was married, but
Look, there were a lot of levels to that joke. I would appreciate some.
what I'll say is, look, the girls are still flashing tits at Kiss and Poison shows. You go to a Kiss show, you will still see boobs.
Yet
Boobs
another
aplenty.
joke
That's why
about
Ace had to
death.
put this song away and
Perplexing
retire it
some,
because he's
and
in a
just
long-term
plain
relationship
scary.
now. And
Yeah.
you know,
He had to retire the song.
Greg, I think you and I are going to different shows, man, or I'm sitting in the wrong section.
I guess.
Well, you're supposed to be on stage so you can see them.
I guess.
You know, all the rock and roll movies that you saw back in the day, you know, since the 80s, you know, you kind of thought they made it look like it was an 80s stereotype. No, it was really happening. And there was a lot more going on at those shows than you ever would imagine.
No, I mean, it's even as late as, like, you know, 2007 or 2008. Like, I have seen. I should maybe not say incriminating things on this podcast now that I'm married.
I mean, your wife's not going to listen.
She's not going to
Seen a
listen.
thing or
She's not going to listen. But you know what? Yeah, the song is fine. Any other comments?
all right.
Sure.
All right. So next up on the list, we have Steve's least favorite song from the album. We've got "Love Me Right" next on the list.
Third from the bottom.
All
I
right,
feel like
I'm
nobody
done talking
particularly
about this
disagrees
crappy
with me
song.
on this.
Bill probably disagrees with you since he ranked it second from the top.
vehemently
Oh, wow.
disagree with you,
Yeah,
Steven.
fair enough.
This is actually the other song that I was going to mention because it was just kind of a, you know, kind of describing a sexy situation. It had a cool groove, boom, dun, 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 you know, like that. And I'm not Lee McCormick. I don't have my guitar sitting next to me where I'd play it. But, you know, it had that a cool groove to it, 4 on the floor. And it's like, you know, let's just get it on. You know, that's pretty much, it was almost the same. It was kind of odd having both of these on the same album because they kind of really just were thematically the same.
I
But
mean,
I ranked it at number 2.
Isn't that weird for there to be 2 songs on a Kiss-related album about getting laid?
Yeah, unheard
that's-
of.
This seems like an awful lot.
Yeah. Like, they usually have more lyrical diversity than that.
A lyrical
and that's
diversity,
the thing
like
with-
touch me like you touch your little teddy bear. Is that what you mean by lyrical diversity? what the hell is that? Come on, Ace. You're making me look bad here. Trying to tell people
Well,
how
and-
awesome you are, and you're writing shit like that. That's a Gene
And that's the
Simmons
thing
lyric
is, you
there.
know, is Ace was pulling a lot out of the Kiss playbook for this album.
For
you know,
sure. Yep.
Everything up to, you know, probably Love Gun because, you know, the Elder and everything like that was so much different, or Dynasty was so much more different. But yeah, the first 6 album, he was pulling a lot out of that playbook for this.
I think a lot of times on this album, you're going to find that Ace Frehley and his band have put together this ripping ass song, and then now it's time to put some lyrics on it. So let's just whatever, you know. That's kind of the jive I get off a song like this. I mean, talk about Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley's not freaking Dream Theater. He's not Yes. He's going to keep it simple. This is just a simple rock tune. I didn't rank it that high because, touch me like you touch your little teddy bear.
Yeah.
Always was weird to me. But, I mean, there's some cool, freaking solid riffage going on and some good hooks in the song. The guitar solo is freaking awesome, but it's just not really, it never seemed like a really complete song to me.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
I would also use the phrase ripping ass to describe this song, but, in the sense that ripping ass is also a euphemism for farting.
Damn.
This show is not as fun as you guys come off on your actual podcast. It's like I listen to your show on the podcast. I think, oh, these guys are fun and this is cool. Yeah, I'll go over there and talk about Ace Frehley, and I'm having just a terrible time.
The trick is you got to pick an album that isn't your favorite.
I'm trying, Aaron. I'm trying to say it.
I'll come at this with a bit more nuance than Steve, because Steve has gone on record as Ace being his your least favorite of the original four.
I mean, probably.
I named my son Ace. My only begotten son is legally named Ace.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a difference between your opinions.
There's a chasm. There's definitely some kind of communication breakdown here.
Remember,
Aaron, on that same note, my son's name is Andrew Carson Elam. So I'm right there with you.
There you go.
Oh, nice. But
remember that Steve's a bassist.
Right.
He's a different breed. He's just there to make jokes and get laid. That's all he's there for.
And it rarely ever works.
Right.
There you go. He's a bassist.
But I'll come. I'm in between the two of you on this, where I think it is a competent rock song. It is remarkably fine, played by good musicians, but it's not a classic.
Right.
And the thing is, Ace has delivered so many classics that when you hear a song like this, it has the Ace Frehley groove, it has the Ace Frehley swagger, but it feels like a filler track. It's a competent filler track. It's no Boomerang. It's not a dumpster fire. It's fine, but it's not essential.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can agree with that.
I mean, honestly, I don't even consider it that bad of a song. I ranked it at the bottom, but mostly just because it felt a little bit underwritten overall. With the amount of stuff they wrote and arranged in this song, it shouldn't be 4 minutes long. If it was just under 3, I probably would have ranked it 2 spots higher.
I can dig it,
The reason I ranked it above We Got Your Rock is because the solo's better. The solo in We Got Your Rock's a little sloppier. But, I mean, it seemed like that the solo in this was a little bit more composed, and I think he executed it better.
Yeah, I actually ranked this one at number 4 just because I liked how it kicked off. It's got solid, it's got that solid guitar riff, man. It was working for me. I don't think it's the greatest song, but I think he's kicking it off with the beginning.
So we're all in agreement. It's remarkably fine.
It's remarkably fine. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Perfect.
But I thought it could have been a single.
Talking about Frehley's Comet in his first album this time, I remember one time for my birthday, I got a gift of a Frehley's Comet t-shirt from my aunt. And it was like the greatest thing anybody had ever gotten me. I wore that shirt until you couldn't even tell what was on the front of it anymore. It was just their 4 faces, and it said Frehley's Comet. And I wore that shirt. I never wanted to wear anything else at that age because I was an Ace Frehley fanatic, 13-year-old.
And
child out of time.
That's awesome. And as I'm, discussing this ranking, this album has all the ingredients for an album that I should love. I'm recognizing mathematically everything is checking off when I compare it to other albums that I love, other albums I grew up with. And, maybe part of, the lack of appeal for me is that I wasn't waiting years for this to be the new return of Ace Frehley. Yeah. My return of Ace Frehley was Anomaly. Yeah. Which also, wasn't that great. So perhaps because, I absorbed, the entire Kiss catalog basically at once. So I came at this where like Psycho Circus was the newest Kiss album, and everything before Psycho Circus I heard basically simultaneously, including Vinnie Vincent Invasion, including Frehley's Comet. So absorbing that all at once, it didn't stand out, and this song didn't stand out. But maybe if I had that context, I would have like appreciated this album way more when it was like the new release.
Totally.
Because it is a strong comeback.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And one defense for the teddy bear line is even in the height of Beatlemania, there was people who had, there was girls who would, they'd have their teddy bear and they'd name it Paul or they'd name it George or Ringo or whatever. And then Kiss had dolls and stuff like that. And there were, it was definitely prominent in the Beatle area.
All comes together.
Yeah, the only one in captivity. It was like they would actually, they'd kiss the teddy bear goodnight and say, "Good night, Paul," and whatever. And I guess that covers both bands if I say Paul. But, it might have been a little bit of an old guy perspective in 1986, and now it's a really old guy perspective. But throwing that in there, I can remember seeing, there was a movie called I Want to Hold Your Hand, and it was kind of like the Beatles version of Detroit Rock City, where there were these 4 girls, and all they wanted to do was go to the Beatles show. And they had teddy bears that they named after the Beatles, and they kissed them goodnight. And it's like, yours isn't John, mine's John, and stuff like that. So it's a little old guy perspective, definitely for now, and probably a little bit in '86.
Wow.
Right? It should have been Touch Me Like You Touch Your officially sanctioned Kiss Ace Frehley body pillow.
Yeah, that would be now. It's like, that's not licensed.
Right. See, and that's also deep because I just always assumed teddy bear was just a euphemism for a vagina.
Well, that's the thing. Is Elvis
So clever.
wanted to be your teddy bear?
There you go.
All makes sense.
Well,
And
hey,
I'm a big Elvis fan, so if you want to do some Elvis, hit me up.
man, that's
Hell yeah.
Elvis is a tricky one because I was writing a book about Elvis and did a ton of research, and that's more like of a singles artist than an album artist, and so that would make doing episodes on him trickier, and it'd be more interesting to rank his movies, but there's so many of them, and Steve would not want to watch all of them because only like 6 of them are good.
6. I think you're being generous.
I'm being pretty generous. I mean, look, we all know that King Creole is a masterpiece of cinema. We all know that.
Outstanding. Yes.
And you know what? Love Me Tender is better than people give it credit for. But we got a lot of songs to go through. We'll get to Elvis later.
Elvis just never had enough screaming guitar solos for me.
Yeah, I mean, what a
Leave
pussy.
that to Ace Frehley.
He never had enough songs that weren't just, sort of standard, blues songs.
He never had a lot of choice in the decisions either, so for what that's worth.
Yeah.
But yeah, King Creole, great movie. Everyone should watch it. Next up on the list, we have Something Moved. So we've got the first song in our ranking that's not sung by Ace Frehley.
I wonder why that is.
So Steve, you did not necessarily know you were going to get additional vocalists on this album when you started listening to it.
Right? That song started, I was like, oh, is this the first one in the album?
It's not the first one with different vocals, but what was your sort of reaction to just Todd Howarth's vocals on this album?
I mean, that was nice. Like, Todd's vocals started on the first song he was on. I was like, oh, Ace is really pushing himself. Hold on. No, that's not actually Ace. He hired a better vocalist for some of these songs. I mean,
I said
good.
the same thing when I heard Psycho Circus.
Oh, hey, Ace got way better at playing guitar in this album.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Exactly.
I ranked this on the high mids, and basically was like, I didn't like this guitar solo in particular. I found a little bit boring, but like the rest of the song was like, all right, Ace hired a bunch of musicians who were able to like fill in for his weaknesses, and he produced a pretty solid song for it.
Wow.
Damn. So here I might be even hotter than Steve on this.
Hot takes.
I don't even know if Ace is even on this track. Like the solo sounds way more shred and technical than normal Ace Frehley shenanigans. The riffing sounds like this is just a standard a very well done but standard hair metal song.
Got to be kidding.
It's got, that bitchin' 80s riff. It's got that 80s swagger. It's got that soaring, almost danger-esque vocal to it. So this is very well done hair metal. And I'm pretty sure Ace doesn't even know how to play the song. Probably didn't hear it till the record came out. I feel like Ace had nothing to do with this track. However, let's give credit to all the amazing musicians who are on this track. Todd Howarth, doing, great vocals, great guitar, because he's doing lead guitar, keyboards, and vocals on this album. So he's doing some of the solos on this album. So the solos that don't sound like Ace, wow, Ace is doing standard 80s hair metal shred. It's probably not Ace, it's probably Todd, since he's credited as lead guitar. Anton Fig, amazing drummer. John Regan, great bass player, and really gluing together the pieces and making this a cohesive album. So this is really the rest of the band doing a really competent rock song that I don't know if this was one they brought in from different sessions or previously. This was another one?
Yes, I was going to say, because that's perfect, because that's exactly the reason why. This was a song by a band called 707. 707. Who was Todd Howarth's band.
They did the song Megaforce.
Right, and that was this song. This song is Megaforce.
Wait, I thought...
No, you're wrong.
No, that's a different song on the album.
Is that not this one?
That's not this one. The Megaforce is, the... Calling to You, which we'll get to later in the ranking.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But yeah, this is just a cool hair metal song where if you were just real into 80s hair metal and someone put this on a sampler, you would have no idea. What, that's Ace Frehley's band? That's Ace? That sounds nothing like Ace. Probably because Ace isn't on the track, probably. But this is just a really cool, hair metal song. So if you're a fan of the genre, you're like, yeah, solid hair metal. Lift up the horns and party. This is just a bitchin' rock tune.
Right. And I think, this kind of, because you got to remember at about this same time in rock and roll timelines of things, Kiss is about to come out with Crazy Nights. And this song, Todd Howarth is really Ace Frehley's Paul Stanley on this album. He really is that's who Ace relies on to do things like that. It kind of shows that Ace kind of still wishes he was working with those guys in a lot of ways, I think, because he had some of these songs. And, I think Ace plays on it not a whole lot. I mean, he didn't write it. It's kind of got that Detroit Rock City thing going on in the solo a little bit, where it's the doubled guitars. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he's doing that with them or not, but it always makes me wonder. I think this song could have fit on Crazy Nights if Ace was, in Kiss at that time. A lot of the Todd Howard songs on this album would have easily been a great song on Crazy Nights, and kind of shows what Kiss might have sounded like if Ace was in the band because of the timing of it all, if they're both coming out in the same year.
So a quick, general question of the panel, because I remember when I was in high school, it was the songs that Todd sang were sort of looked down upon a little bit because it wasn't Ace singing, Ace was the guy. Did everyone else have that same sort of thing too? Who's this new guy?
Totally did.
Yes.
When I first listened to the album, like I said, I brought it home. I'm all excited to hear the new Ace Frehley album. I put it on, and the first couple songs, this is awesome. And then it's wait a minute, who's this guy? Why is he singing? This is an Ace Frehley album. It was kind of a bummer because as a huge Ace Frehley fan, I wasn't there for Todd Howarth vocals. I was there for an Ace Frehley album. And so I can appreciate these songs. I respect them. Todd Howarth, hell of a singer, man. Awesome singer.
Great musician. Post some crazy shit to Facebook, but great musician.
Great songwriter, too. And so, but, regardless of that, I was looking for a redo of the 78 solo album where it was all Ace Frehley songs. So at the time, it was a letdown, but I've learned to appreciate these songs a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's sort of where I'm at, too. I think, and I think as we become older and more mature, I think I think all of us have become less attacking scabs in bands. Yeah. Because, now, our buddy Phil Schaus, he's playing with Accept now.
That's awesome.
And you read the comment section, why does Accept need another guitar player? Who's this chump? And people are ragging on Phil online because they don't know who he is.
Right.
But, some of these new members in bands are great musicians, good guys, happy to have the gig. And so I think as we've all matured and been around the industry enough where we see our friends getting those kind of gigs, we're less harsh on it. So when you go back and revisit this album, you're like, you know what? Good for Todd. He does a great vocal. He's, killing it on guitar. Good for him.
Totally. Yep. I guess let's hear what Steven's got to say about it. Oh, man.
Wait, I already commented on this one.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
man.
was pretty positive.
Yeah, it's mid-highs.
Okay, cool.
Like,
Good.
I didn't like the solo, but
Actually, that was all Steven's comment, wasn't it? That was all. Is he the only one that's commented, or was yours counted as a comment, Greg?
Mine counts as a comment.
Okay.
Bill, you ranked it right in the middle. Why is this right in the middle?
Well, that's the thing. It's a tricky song because the guitars sound great, the vocals are awesome, the lyrics are great, the choruses are good, and the middle eight at the tail end of it is awesome. But the drums kill it for me. It's like do da do da do da. It was like bass snare all the way through.
So you
the
don't
song.
like to rock? What's wrong, bro?
Well, it just doesn't really seem to fit. You know, it almost seems like it should have had something. And I'll go ahead and throw this out there now: is Todd's contributions to the album bring more of what Van Halen was doing in 1986 to the album than not, because it like the solos that you mentioned. You know, the shredding solos, the really cool riff in it. And if it had a more of like an Alex Van Halen kind of drum beat, and I love Anton Fig to death, but it's just like, I don't know how they could actually commit that drum beat, because it ruins the song, in my opinion.
That's weird, because for me, this is one of the songs that like everything gels together the most cohesively, including the drums. So it's really interesting to hear you say the drums don't work for you, because I'm like the opposite. We're like, wow, this is like one of the best constructed songs on the album.
It almost seems to me like he's just basically keeping time. It's like, well, let's put the riff down and then we'll put the drums in later or something like that, because it's just dirging to me. And that's it. It's the entire, it's a lot closer to what Van Halen was doing on 5150, almost tonally too. If you think about the tone of that main riff, that was pretty much what Eddie was doing on 5150, and Todd was so much more of a Van Halen flavored guitarist than Ace was, and then I think it brought a nice balance, and I'll discuss more of that later. But yeah, it's just the drums that kill it for me. If it had a more suitable drum pattern, in my opinion, it'd probably been in my top 3.
All right, so Andy, you also think the drums on this one are shit, I assume, based upon you ranking it at the bottom?
I ranked it as number 10. This is just a snoozer for me. I just couldn't get into it.
He doesn't like to rock. It's okay.
I think
you can
there's
only rock
better
if the word
songs
rock
out
is
there
in the title.
But yeah, I found it just average everything. This could have been on any other 1987 hard rock album, this song.
Yeah, totally.
Just plain.
Fair enough. Well, I think it is. I think it is very good for the genre where it could have been on a lot of other albums at the same time, but I think it is done exceptionally well and was a surprising highlight upon revisiting the album. So I think this holds up very well.
I'd like to hear Paul Stanley sing it. I can only imagine. Not today. Not today. I would wait. Let me rephrase. I would have liked to have heard Paul Stanley sing that in 1987.
You know what? I just want Ted Poley to sing it. He can sing it now. He's good.
Sure.
Get Ted Poley to do it. All right. Well, hey, next up on the list is Steve's favorite song from the album.
Yeah.
My second favorite song from the album. I think an absolute highlight and one of the essential, like, you must have this track from this album. But there's a lot of disagreement. Next on the list is Dolls.
It's New Wave Ace.
He's into space. It's the 80s, throwing synths on things. That seems very appropriate.
And I gotta say, I've always hated this song. and when I put my list together, I just did it off the top of my head. I was like, let me hurry up, get these to Greg so he can add them into the equation, and I'll figure it out later. And so that was like my initial reaction was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there you go. And Dolls was ranked dead last for me. But after listening to it for these last couple of days, I think something has changed inside of me. And I think what it is that Chris Czynszak has turned me on to so many weird Alice Cooper songs from Alice Cooper's Blackout era that it makes this song it makes me have a new understanding for this song because
It's Blackout Ace.
if this was an Alice Cooper song from say the 80s, you know, sometime around then,
If this was from Zipper Catches Skin,
perfect
you'd be
Alice
like,
Cooper
this is
song.
a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece. Totally, you're right. I'm telling you,
Work is one of his.
absolutely. But it's so far out of left field for Ace Frehley that at first I could never understand it. You know, it's such a weird song. The guitars are way under the mix,
Right.
which that's not Ace Frehley. If I know anything about Ace Frehley, everything else is under the guitars. You know, this is it's written totally by him.
Yeah, so
It's-
this is one of the most sincerely Ace songs on the album, no
Yeah.
co-writes. So the guitars being buried in the mix, that is very intentional. Like, this is all very, Ace knew exactly what he was doing with this track.
It might be the most experimental thing Ace Frehley ever did. And you get the debut of Monique Frehley. His daughter sings on it, who grew up to be a quite pretty young lady.
Is that who did that?
Despite being the daughter of Ace Frehley. Way prettier than you'd expect the spaceman's kid to be.
So, when do you think she figured out what the song she sang on was about?
Well, I think that's the cool thing about the song because it's got that duality because of that. Because
Is it a sex cult or
Ace
is it about
Frehley's
dolls?
talk is singing about one thing, and the kid's singing about something else. They're singing the same thing, but it's got two completely different meanings. This is some Pink Floyd shit going on here
Man,
now.
knowing
And this
this
is an Ace
totally-
Frehley album.
This makes it even better. I wish I could have ranked it
Right.
higher.
Yeah, because you ranked it number one and you want to rank it even higher than
Right.
that.
He wrote a weird synth-driven song about his creepy sex cult. It's great. Had a little girl singing on it. Turns out it was his daughter, even.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, you know, Ace Frehley was into those, like, Forbidden Planet movies and stuff. This seems like it would be a great song for one of those B-movie, horror movie things where, like, a man invents these living mannequin doll women who do everything for him until the day things go terribly wrong.
Right.
Yeah. I've always loved the song since I first heard, like, that is a highlight from this album.
Yeah.
This is amazing. On a purely, like, music construction level, this is one of the highlights of the album in terms of, like, the way all the instruments are arranged, the hooks, the pacing, the dynamics. Ace is delivering a strong vocal. The lyrics are very clever because, you know, when you listen to it, you think, all right, this is about dolls. Wait, this is about a sex cult. No, wait, I think this actually is about dolls. He's just fucking weird. Just like,
Makes you think, makes you wonder.
Has a bunch of Barbie dolls just hanging around his house. He's just a fucking weirdo.
Everybody's amazed by how many he's got.
And
This is
I
my
thi-
Barbie collection.
and I-
Curly, what do you think?
And I think that's like there's a brilliance to like just the quirkiness of it, but it is like it's very strong, very catchy, and I think you know that synth makes sense as a hook there because if that was played with guitars that exact same hook, it would rock too much. It would be too heavy. But choosing to have a synth there gives it that offbeat quirkiness.
Right.
And that's what Ace has always sort of shined as being a little bit offbeat and quirky. Like Shock Me as a song succeeds because it's a little bit offbeat and weird and just like kind of like out of place and doesn't exactly like sync up into what's like a normal rhythm for a person. And so this is another quirky Ace song, and this is where I give him full credit because no co-writes. This is all coming out of his head, the way he wanted to do it, and it is, whether you like the song or don't like it, it is one of the most memorable tracks from this album, because as soon as someone mentions dolls, that song is in your head like, oh, yeah, I remember, I remember that song. And so I think it's a highlight, and I appreciate the change of pace. And I think it's one of the best songs he's done post-Kiss, absolutely.
If I did my list today, I wouldn't have it at 10. After listening to this album for the past couple of days, Dolls has really moved up for me, and I found a new appreciation for it.
See, you and Steve are on the same page. Dolls is awesome.
For
I think
once
it's
in our
'cause
lives.
the creepy dolls are possessing his mind, to be fair. But join us.
It's an anime movie just waiting to happen.
Right?
One of us.
So, Andy, why do you dislike good music?
Oh man, I ranked this one as number 9. I had here in my notes. I said he's stolen some Alan Parsons Project keyboards.
Yeah.
So he made it awesome?
True. But yeah, I think Aaron hit it when he mentioned Pink Floyd. I put on here, this is kind of like his Another Brick in the Wall, you know, with you get the kids' vocals on it. As far as lyric wise, I totally see this as being like a Twilight Zone episode synopsis. I just don't get it. Is this like an ode to blow up dolls or what's going on here? Just not sure what he was doing.
Well, I know dudes who have, look, I know plenty of dudes who have their action figure collections. You know, oh, I've got all my Star Wars figures. What if that dude just had Barbie dolls instead? That's kind of creepy. Look,
what is your stepson up to, Greg?
Look, you know, how much criticism can I give as a guy who's really excited for Frozen 2? You know, as a guy whose favorite movie is like a Disney princess movie from 2013, who am I to judge?
Right, yeah.
Bill, you've ranked this way too low.
I agree. I ranked it too low because I probably should have put this above Something Moved, because I take a different perspective on it, because when I first listened to it, I never found the sexual context of it, especially even at 17. But it's kind of like, I can remember reading People magazine in 1980 when Monique was an infant. There was a picture of Ace holding Monique in front of him, you know, looking at her when she was an infant. So this puts her at about 6-7 years old when this was recorded. And, you know, it was the only child that him and Jeanette ever had. But I look at it more from a dad's perspective, and it's just kind of like, okay, this girl has got one of the richest dads in rock and roll. What's it going to look like when you walk into her bedroom? That child is going to have everything she wants all the way around the room, the big floral bed with the topper on it and all that junk. But I wouldn't doubt if she had, you know, as a 6-year-old, hundreds and hundreds of dolls. And when you have a conversation with your daughter that's young like that, they'll say simple things like that. Well, when I sleep, they wait on me and stuff like that. And, you know, when I'm hungry, they feed me, and when they're hungry, and vice versa. So I really just kind of put it in a dad perspective and locked the door on it, and never really, you know, really took yeah, you can get the little bit of a kink in it. Okay, but I mean,
they're washing his balls, Bill. They're washing his balls.
Always labor under the assumption that any Kiss-related song is about a sex cult.
We're here
Wait,
to
let me look here.
pornography and sodomize our vast imaginations.
Washing balls. I'm not seeing washing balls.
When he bathes.
Which verse is that in? Well, and that's the thing is the little girl takes a doll
We
to
just
the
ruined it
bathtub.
for him.
No, I'm serious. You know, that's like a thing is, you know, I can remember when my kids were little, you know, they didn't take a bath unless they had toys in there with, you know, and then all of a sudden you go down in the middle of the night and jump in the shower or something like that, and next you're stepping on a Ninja Turtle or something like that. So I really never really thought about it being from his perspective. That and one way that I had in some parental teaching things is they show on the doll, you know, this is how you wash your hair, and you know, wash the doll's hair or something like that. It's some kind of some trainings like that, you know, actually have you doing the thing to the doll that they want the child themselves to do. But I really just kind of locked it into that parental perspective, so I never really picked up and ran with the sexual thing on it.
See, I didn't hear the song until after Barbie Girl, so of course any lyrics about like I'm a doll, here's a doll, you can do anything too, like is gonna be, you know, shaped by Aqua.
Yeah, right.
Great song, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Hot takes.
Terrible.
And on the scent thing, you know, if you go on YouTube and you look up Ace Frehley demos from '85, I think it wasn't an audio video that was like a total dance song.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that's honestly,
You know,
that'd be like top 2 or 3 if it was on the album, so I have no idea why it was left off.
I know. And what was the other one? There was another one, Catch Me When I Fall?
That's the same thing.
Yeah, okay, but then there was another one then.
there's another one
The
about
Girl
dancing
Can't Dance.
itself.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, the girl can't dance.
That's a dance beat one, but that's an awesome song too. I don't understand why that didn't make
Sounds
the
like
album.
a Genesis song from the 80s.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's basically probably that he got the deal with Megaforce, and Megaforce is going to say, we're not going to put out dance music.
Yeah, I suppose.
If you
Yeah, it has
want
to
to
be
do a hard
raw.
rock
Right,
album,
yeah, because at that
you wanna
time,
get,
Megaforce was made up of like Anthrax and bands like that, like the heavy
So,
stuff.
so this was
Yeah.
probably like his act of defiance on the album. Like, all right, fine, you won't let me have audio video. I'm fucking putting dolls on the album.
I'll show you all.
And you know that also, I'm gonna cut Ace a little bit of slack, as I was sort of criticizing him bringing in the other writers because he didn't have enough material. He did have enough material, but just not enough material that the label would approve.
Yeah,
so the other
true.
guys are like, well, I got this metal song, and toss that on there.
And I think another thing that should be said about this album is, you know, Eddie Trunk, amongst podcasters, gets a lot of shit sometimes. But the thing I always remember about Eddie Trunk was he facilitated this album even existing. You know, he got on with Megaforce Records, got in with Johnny Z, and while Johnny Z's looking for the Metallicas and Megadeths and bands like that,
Right.
Eddie Trunk's over here going, yeah, but what about Ace Frehley? You know, Ace Frehley was a member of KISS. You know, you'll sell some albums with him.
Right.
Ace Frehley was like the dark horse of that whole lineup of bands that was on Megaforce at the time. That was all heavy music and Frehley's Comet.
Right.
You know, so always got to give Eddie Trunk the love and respect for abusing his power to bring Ace Frehley back to record a new album after all them years.
Yeah, and thankfully he never abused his power after that.
That was it, one
Aaron,
time.
didn't you and Chris?
One and done.
Didn't you
And
and
then,
Chris interview Johnny Z?
No, we interviewed Eddie Trunk, but that was years ago.
Oh, okay.
Eddie
Well,
Trunk's
I
first
know I've heard
podcast appearance.
I've heard a Johnny Z
Nice.
interview where he said, you know, he gave Eddie the credit for championing Ace and that. And see, where was I going to go with that? It's like, yeah, he'd mentioned exactly what you said, that he was the dark horse, but it also helped cement his relationship with Atlantic Records.
Right.
Because he had that connection as a subsidiary, but when they found out he had Ace Frehley, they're like, okay, yeah, bring it on.
Nice. And that's when Ace Frehley saved rock and roll.
so, any other comments on Dolls, the song that saved rock and roll before we move on?
Nope.
In some alternate universe.
All right, well, next up on the list, we have a song that I was talking about with Aaron before we were recording, about a song where I said, I think I know your mindset. We've got Stranger in a Strange Land. That's on the list.
That's my number one.
Yep. And when I first saw your list, like, why is that his number one? And then I thought to myself, what is the most authentically 70s Ace Frehley on this album? Stranger in a Strange Land is the one that sounds most like a 70s Ace song.
Yes, I think this song, out of everything on this entire album, that's the one song that you could cherry pick off of here and put on his 78 solo album and never think twice about it. It's got everything you want in an Ace Frehley song. It's hard rocking. It's got them hooks and those riffs that you love about Ace Frehley, that tone that nobody sounds like, you know, but Ace Frehley. Like when you hear just the guitar, you know who that is, you know, and the solo is one of the best things I think Ace Frehley ever recorded as far as, I mean, all his KISS songs, all his solo stuff, this song is right up at the top. I think this is a perfect representation of Ace Frehley for somebody who's looking for something a little more on the hard rock side, somebody that was a fan of his when he was in KISS. I think Stranger in the Strange Land is essential Ace Frehley. Oh yeah, number one.
You know what it doesn't have? Actual references to the book that it's about. You're gonna have a second song in a row, you know, like explicitly named after a book all about a sex cult right after your song about a sex cult. What the hell, Ace? Like,
So
actually,
wait, you think that Ace Frehley read a book?
Right. You just saw the title and thought,
I think-
that sounds cool.
I think Ace Frehley is a sci-fi nerd, and so maybe he didn't actually read the book, but
He saw the cover and thought it was
he
awesome.
saw the cover of it and like.
Got a nice
I got
ring
a nerd
to
drop I
it.
have to throw in here somewhere.
Listen to those lyrics, man.
Yes.
It's all
what I
about
was
love and longing. Yes, and hobbits too.
So the thing is, when I heard this song, I recognize upon repeated listens that this is the most 70s style song, but in the album, it ranked right in the middle for me because that's not really what I'm married to about this album in terms of, like, for me, it's like, what are the best songs from the album? This one sounds the most like a 70s Ace KISS song, but I just think there are better songs on the album. So this is the one that, you know, touches that nostalgia vibe. And I think unlike, let's say, Sonic Boom or Monster, where their attempts to sound retro, I think, are forced, and like they're really trying to capture that 70s sound, I think this was just very natural, just like, yeah, Curly, I wrote this song, Stranger in a Strange Land. It goes like this. Like, I think Ace just pulled it out, and this was very natural and sincere, and it's definitely cool, but you know, maybe some of it is like the 80s-isms of the production with like that much reverb on the snare doesn't sound like a 70s Ace song. And so like the overall gestalt of the production doesn't feel like a 70s Ace song. But I think, you know, if this was recorded on the 78 solo, I'd probably have a higher opinion of it. And it's one of those ones where like when I saw you rank it number 1, it made me reevaluate it. And I like it more after like thinking, oh, Aaron's, you know, recognizing the 70s-isms of this. Right. And like, you know what? I didn't recognize that as much myself, but listening through it through that lens has made me like it more. So I might have ranked it a little bit low. Maybe I would have put it 1 or 2 spots above. But I definitely like it more because I, you know, looked at your perspective. Right. Or what I assumed your perspective was.
Yeah, and you were right on the money. That's exactly what it is. I love everything about it. You know, it's John Regan, again, awesome bass player. He drives this song. And, you know, Anton Fig, his drums sound like freaking dynamite going off in this song. And it's, like I said, it would have been an awesome Kiss song if Kiss would have, you know, come out with Creatures of the Night instead of The Elder. It would have fit right on there pretty awesomely, too.
The Elder is a great masterpiece.
I'm just saying, I ain't saying nothing bad about The Elder. I'm just saying, what if, you know?
Well, no, what it should have been, double disc album, The Elder. This is also on The Elder. And Ace is, you know, talking about the boy's in a strange land. He's a stranger in a strange land.
Saw a book once, Curly. You know, just the cover.
So Bill, you don't like this song. Why do you hate America?
Well, is this? I'm wrong. I'm confused. Is this not about the adventures of Connor McLeod and Highlander?
You're on the wrong Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Stranger in a Strange Land. If it's not about that, then this must be the Burn Bitch Burn of this album.
Oh,
wow.
Wow. Ouch.
I mean, you know, you guys have already, you know, voiced your opinions on it, but nobody's talked about the subject matter. And it's kind of like, does anybody else not see it as the first time eating pussy?
I mean, that's what makes it so special for a 13-year-old is what I'm saying.
Well, I guess so.
But how old was Ace Frehley?
That's right. and sit back, baby. I learned a little something listening to this Ace Frehley album, and I think you're going to like it.
Would this have been on Lick It Up?
Probably, yeah. I would have seen it on Lick It Up.
So, like, right after the song Lick It Up. Or right before, like it's a lead-in, like they're sister songs.
I think if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to include "We Got Your Rock" onto the Animalize album. You know, I still think the log in the fireplace equates to the teddy bear. So I think that
the difference between this and the cock rock of "We Got Your Rock" and "Love Me Right" is that it's not. This is like what Ace's post Anomaly material's been like. Every line rhymes. You know, it's like, you know, okay, inside, wild, it, tonight, right, give me more. It just seems like it kind of wears you out. You just get fatigued with all the rhyming, because where the other songs actually have a little bit of flow, you know, ebb and flow in between the rhymes, this one is just like, this one rhymes, now this one rhymes, now this one rhymes. And that's really the one thing I don't like about it. And I honestly do love the subject matter of it.
Well, you know, it's good to know that you're a progressive man.
And this is probably a good point for me to make this clear. There's no song on this album that I hate. You know, I am, as one of our friends would say, a nut swinger for this album, because there's not a single song on this I don't like. This was probably a tough ranking for me.
Yeah,
probably
me too.
The roughest I've ever done in my head, you know, and first time I had to put it down on paper. But I mean, I drop this needle and I just play both sides straight through. There's never a skip on this for me.
Hell yeah.
And, you know, I get that. And what I would say is the reason why the lyrics might not be as strong is there's no co-writer on this. So we figured out what it is, and he used all of his good songwriting on Dolls. So he had nothing left.
Again, I think it's one of them things where you lay down this just ripping tune, and say these guitars, this bass, the drums, it's great.
What am I going to write about?
Now
I guess
what?
I'm going to talk about eating pussy, I guess.
That's how I was eating some pussy last night. What's that book over there?
Bit.
Well, yeah, you have to breathe a little bit, because if you're just down there too long without oxygen, you'll pass out, man.
Exactly. That's
Everybody
what I'm
knows that,
saying,
Curly.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's the thing is like where the term breathing it. I remember that Paul used that when he was describing his refining of Into the Void. He said, well, Ace wrote the song and then I took and helped it breathe a little bit. And I think that Into the Void does breathe, it has some good space, but this is just kind of like this line here, this line here, this line here. But that's like if there'd been like,
is
maybe a crazy
cunnilingus?
Little guitar lick in between the first line and the third, between the second line and the third line, just to give it some flavor. It just seemed like it was just
Flavor?
Are you doing this on purpose?
See, isn't that where it all comes down to? So you got to breathe. You got to like the flavor of it. And, see?
So,
And this is why I ranked it number 1.
and that's why his wife is very happy with him. So, Andy, you ranked the second highest. Why do you like eating pussy so much?
Well, where do I begin? Here. Actually, no, I ranked this number 3 on my list. I said this was classic Ace. It's got great guitar riff. It's got a great hook. I mean, I was driving in the car. I was kind of shaking my fist, listen to the chorus. It just rocks. Yeah, I really dug it. So I think it's one of the better tracks on the album. And the fact that you guys are going to get it into some pussy licking, all the better.
This show's been everywhere.
We are earning that explicit rating on iTunes. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ace.
Any other comments on eating pussy before we move on?
Good, and good for you.
So I'm just on the Wikipedia disambiguation page of Stranger in a Strange Land, and there's about a dozen songs with this name. So does that mean that, like, the Barbra Streisand Barry Gibb song is also about cunnilingus?
They all
Gotta
are.
eat when you can.
Is the U2 song from October same thing?
That's a cautionary tale.
Right.
U2 doesn't do that.
I mean, obviously the 30 Seconds to Mars
Bono
song
expects
is
it
about
from you,
doesn't.
but he will not reciprocate.
What a dick.
That fucking asshole.
I mean,
Oh,
obviously
man.
the Eddie Money song from '86 is about that.
Yeah.
Well, that
obviously.
goes without saying.
Because Eddie Money's a champ.
Cheeseburger in paradise. Oh,
That's the only
man.
way you can get Eddie Money to do it is just shove a cheeseburger up there. Hey, Eddie, I got something.
Cheeseburger is the euphemism.
No, I'm thinking she just has a literal cheeseburger.
All right, what's next?
Jeez.
Oh, man, my eyes are watering.
It's time for this. I'm glad my wife does not care about listening to my podcast.
Mine too. Don't say I'm glad my wife doesn't listen to your podcast.
That's okay. Just to figure out what I'm going to have to explain when my daughter listens to this one.
You might want to sit it down and have a talk first.
Just go up to the 133 mark and then skip.
Oh, man.
Well, next up on the list, we have the song I ranked number 1 on the album, and Bill ranked last on the album. We've got Into the Night next on the list.
Wow.
As you know, I talked about like not having as much nostalgia for the album as necessarily everyone else, but I watched a ton of VH1 Classic in high school, and so for me, that was my MTV. That was how I discovered Rat and a whole bunch of other bands from just watching VH1 Classic. And so this video for Into the Night was on all the time, and I'm just like, this song is awesome. Like, the band looks cool. They've got this like urban, like blue glow city landscape behind them. Ace looks awesome. He looks competent. He looks healthy. It's another Russ ballad song. And so every time he does a song with Kiss, it's great. Like New York Groove, God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too. Like he's just, for some reason, his songwriting just works with members of Kiss so well. And, when you compare it to the original, it rocks more.
Oh, yeah.
It has a more aggressive groove. It has a great solo, and Ace's guitar tone on this is transcendent, magical. Like, as I've mentioned, like being kind of lukewarm on a bunch of other stuff from the album. Absolutely not with this. This is like a highlight. One of the best things Ace has ever done. One of the coolest videos of any Kiss-related project. Like, everything about this is awesome. Cool, it's catchy, and he's also delivering a great vocal. So like Ace has proven himself as a frontman with this, and digging into his vocal range and like going out there belting, like it's cool. This is a very cool track. I love it. This is great.
You ranked it number 1?
I ranked it number 1.
I ranked it number 3. I got to put it right up there too. I mean, like you said, Russ Ballard wrote New York Groove. I sometimes wonder, like, if this song was available back then, if Ace would have picked this song instead of New York Groove, if it would have been an even bigger hit back in 1978 when them solo albums came out, because this song's kind of a throwback to like a mellow 70s kind of a song. But like you said, Ace Frehley definitely rocks it out. His vocals are awesome. They keep the keyboards kind of subtle on this one, because that's another thing I really didn't like about this album. I always thought there was too much keyboards on it. That would get worse on the next album. Second Coming.
Yeah, but it really it complements on this song.
It does. This one it complements on because it's not overpowering. It's just you got to kind of listen for it. It's there, but it's not stepping on the guitars in any way. And the guitars are also kind of subtle too in a lot of parts of this, where they're not stomping on this song because it's a nice, pretty song. I think Ace does a hell of a job singing on it. He's never been known as a good vocalist, but I think as far as Ace Frehley goes, he nailed it on this song. And the video was cool. Man, yeah, I like this song a lot. That was always one of my favorites. It was the first single off the album. But a lot of people thought that was a mistake because back in those days, you know how it goes. You release the hard rockin' song first, then you back it up with a little something sweeter. So you remind your fans, the dudes, that you still kick ass. Should have come out with Rock Soldiers first and then release this one. And the ladies would have been like, oh, that's sweet too. I'm going to buy it also.
Yeah, and I get that to a degree, but I think this song is just, if I'm the record label, like, what's the best song on the album?
Right, yeah, totally.
This is what I would think. This is the one you push to radio. In retrospect, maybe Rock Soldiers would have been a better first single.
Right.
But I totally get why this would be the lead single, because, like, this is the one that, for me, strikes as, like, the home run.
Right.
Where just, like, because a lot of successful 80s rock had a slight dance groove to it. Like, You Give Love a Bad Name, Desmond Child on Decibel Geek mentioned how it had that little dance groove, and that's how it elevated to the next level.
Russ Ballard's got a lot of those Desmond Child qualities in his songwriting. I think that's why he translates so well to Kiss and members of Kiss. And the guitar solo on this, I couldn't agree with you more. One of the most badass guitar solos Ace Frehley ever recorded.
Yep, so, Bill, why are you wrong about this?
Well, that's the thing is I went and reviewed this bit, and like I said, there's nothing on here I hate, but I'm not even really sure why I hate it anymore, because has anybody heard the original version by Russ Ballard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Okay, the one thing, Ace's version is a vast improvement over that one. Even though the key and everything is about the same, whatever work Ace did on arranging it was brilliant. And because he had like an extra 2 bars after every line to where it really stretched the verses out. It was almost breathing too much. Maybe it was trying to hyperventilate, but that was a joke. And hey, great. But the context of the lyrics, and now see, I'm one of the unfortunate people who I'm still pretty sure I've never seen the video. Because Greg is from Ohio originally, so I can ask Greg. Greg, you remember all those cornfields between Cleveland and Nashville?
Yeah, buddy.
I'm right in the middle of all of those.
I'm sorry, buddy.
So in 1986, there was no such thing as cable out in the sticks. So, I lived on a small farm, and I'd have to go hang out at somebody's house for a couple hours. And this is a video that just didn't come up when I was watching videos with friends. But so I don't know if the video brings context to the song, but it seems like the lyric is so scattered because it talks about the scene and the scene, and it gets so far, and then it gets to that bridge in the middle where he's finally talking about missing someone, and then it's kind of like, okay, well then what was the first two verses about? And then of course the last chorus is kind of mishmashing both of those together. And I'm not really sure why they changed the title of it. It doesn't make any sense to me because it's really called In the Night. And he only says into the night once in it. And it does work in this specific spot where he does. But it wouldn't have worked like that if he'd done that anywhere else in any of the choruses. So, like I said, I don't hate it. But if you're a kid, just sitting there watching the record spin and it's, like I said, in this case, I had the cassette of this. I got second sighting on LP, but I didn't really, read through the lyrics. I'm not even sure if it had the lyrics printed in it. So I wasn't pulling the lyrics off of the sheet trying to make sense of, it's like he's setting the scene and then the loneliness happens in it because it's only to the second part where he's talking about, see the guy down the road, well, that guy is me. It's like, well, what was the first two verses about? Because you got the lady in the night, and you got the man in the black, and then you got the drunks wanting to get a bottle and all that. And it was almost setting a little too much scene about getting to the point. So maybe it took a little too long to get to the point for me.
You're going to have to take that up with Russ Ballard, man.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is it never, like the last chorus, he didn't hesitate to alter the arrangement. So I'm not even sure why he didn't maybe change some of the flavor of the song.
You know what I'm going to do?
But yeah, I mean, I think there's better Russ Ballard songs he could have done, to be honest with you.
Here's what I'll say to reference the Thin Lizzy episode I did with the Decibel Geek guys. Plug.
I heard that one. That was a good one.
Plugging your show on my show,
nice.
Switching it up. But we talked about how Phil Lynott, when he writes songs, he often like paints a picture of like a scene, like an individual scene. And so I think that's what's being done here is that it's a portrait of a scene. It's not necessarily telling a story, but just giving you a sense of atmosphere and vibe.
Right. And I think the video really does go to
that.
Emphasize that too.
But
yeah, I'm down with that, but I think it took a little too long to place the story in the scene. And
I get that, but I think the atmosphere is so good, and just like that groove is just so like perfect, where it takes like the soft rock vibes of the previous one, and still it rocks it up, but without just making it just like four on the floor, just like
right.
Thud, AC/DC. Like it gives it a really unique atmosphere.
Ace shows some restraint.
But at 17, I didn't want atmosphere. I wanted to be just like a teddy bear.
That's fair.
That makes sense to me.
Andy, you also hate good music. Why did you rank this in the middle?
Oh, come on. I think there's better I think there's better songs on the album. I just nothing really stood out here for me. I just found it a solid track again. But I liked better other songs on the album more than this one. And I remember the video from back in the day, and compared to like the girls videos, the
far
guys
too classy, far too classy.
Well, compared to those days, Ace and the band just hanging out singing downtown on some dark street wasn't grabbing me back then compared to girls in strip clubs with Vince Neil and Tommy.
They shot it in Canada. They were trying to be classy.
Pretty much my last statement. Yeah.
And Frehley's Comet would hear these complaints and fix things quickly with their next video for Insane.
So, Steve, you ranked this towards the top.
Yeah, I ranked this third because
Yeah, you and Aaron agree about another song on the album.
What's going on here?
Well,
I'm actually having fun now.
Ace Frehley does a pretty good job when he's covering a song written by somebody who's a more aggressive vocalist, and the same is on his solo album, or ranked the other
New York Groove.
Yeah, New York Groove. I ranked the other Russ Ballard song pretty high because Russ Ballard writes vocal parts that push Ace Frehley, and I think they push him to a good edge of his limit.
The vocal delivery is fantastic. It's definitely the best that's on there.
Yeah. So this is, Ace does well when he sings other people's songs. When Ace writes vocals for himself, I tend to find him pretty underwhelming. But in here, where he's doing somebody else's lyrics, works really well.
And, that's an interesting thing to look at, especially from the artist perspective, as, you and I are songwriters. We write a lot of songs and try to write for our own voices in particular, recognizing the limits of our range. And so when Ace writes, he's probably naturally he has his chords that he likes, he has his rhythms, and he sort of falls into the same patterns. And when you're covering someone else's song, it forces you to step out of your comfort zone as a musician and do a vocal line that might be counterintuitive to what you would write for yourself. And I think Ace really pushes himself with these covers and does a great job with this.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, yeah, Into the Night. All of us are correct about it except Bill. Any other comments before we move on?
Well, and one more thing on that, since you're getting ready to ask, where I was talking about the song Breathing, after the lines, and this is one just kind of like, what the hell is it called? Stranger in a Stranger Land, where every line's rhyming, but there's just enough breath in between the songs. And that's one thing that Ace whittled down because, like I said, there was an extra measure or two after that in the original. But he refined it and made it breathe and did a fantastic job on it. But I don't hate it.
And they've invented this awesome new thing called the internet, Bill. You can actually look up the video and watch it now.
Right, we got it playing in the background right now. He's playing his signature guitar.
Yeah, he's got the Washburn.
It looks like a Guitar Hero controller.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. Got to get some of the Xbox money, Curly.
Right. All right, well, next up on the list, we've got Calling to You next on the list.
Wow. Yeah, that one didn't rank high enough for me on that.
We're top three, so I
got it at number 8.
Yeah, so you gave it 3 points, so it's sort of right, I guess.
I haven't said anything to piss off Aaron for a while, so I'm just going to read my notes verbatim for this one, where I wrote, it's kind of sloppy for a Howarth song, but that's still better than an Ace song.
Oh!
Wow.
Sorry, you seemed like you were having too good of a time.
Thanks for bringing me back down to earth.
Anytime, buddy.
Anytime, Curly.
I think this one, again, for me, it's just another example of a song that would have been freaking perfect on Crazy Nights if Ace Frehley would have still been in the band. If Paul Stanley was singing this song, I think it probably could have been something. It's got that classic anthemic, rock and roll worship that was in so many of them songs that me as a young person was hearing that going, I want to rock, that's what I want to do. I want to be like these guys. I want to be like Ace Frehley. And,
I do want to have got your rock.
Exactly. Right here. It's right here. But yeah, I think
audio
again,
only media.
This is thankfully. Now this is what I think.
Eric, put your pants back on. Jeez.
What kind of podcast is this? I think this would have been perfect on Crazy Nights.
My dick in the mashed potatoes.
And then the show took a different turn.
Earning that explicit rating.
Yep.
Also, getting takedown requests for playing copyrighted ringtones.
Oh.
Yeah, so what I would say about this song is, has anyone else heard the original version of this song when it was called Megaforce by the band 707?
Yes.
Okay, so I appreciate that the vocals in that one sounds like, what if, Geddy Lee and Rick Emmett and the dude from Saga all fused into one person and then had their testicles removed to sing even higher?
Yeah, right.
So I admire it for that. It's also the theme song for a super nerdy sci-fi movie.
Right.
So this is actually just a shonen anime theme song done by Ace Frehley's band, and that is really weird for me because it follows like the musical structure of Japanese shonen anime TV theme songs, like musically and melodically, and even like in terms of lyrics, like pretty perfectly. And so this is bizarre to me because like this is like a Japanese cartoon theme song, but on this Ace Frehley album, and it's not even sung by Ace, so it feels even more like a Japanese cartoon theme song.
It could be totally a theme for a Dragon Ball Z fight or something, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, remember that time your band covered a Japanese cartoon theme song from Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, hey, plug, listen to that.
And had, like,
Wow.
you know, members
I
of
have.
Kiss's backing bands on it.
On that same CD, yeah. Alright, so who also played with Ace Frehley?
I have heard that.
The universe is weird. But as I'm looking at this as a piece, it feels like it doesn't fit on this album at all. But it's really good, so I gave it 6 points.
Right, and Ace said he wanted to change the name of it and the way it came out because he was on Megaforce Records. It sounded like they were singing a song
A commercial
about how
for that
awesome it is to be a part of Megaforce Records.
Which, I mean, makes sense, because like that just feels like lame.
Yeah.
So I get
came out
that.
with this new song called Atlantic. I hope they sign me.
But it's a good song, but the disconnect in my brain of just like knowledge of too much music makes this one extra weird for me. Where just like I just know too much music that like follows these scale patterns and follows this songwriting convention where it's just like in the context of an artist who doesn't do stuff like this normally, to have one song like that on the album, it's like, huh, that's weird. Do you ever do anything like this again? No? All
Okay,
right.
good. Good.
All right, this is no. I mean, it's very good. Like I would say, this is a great song, but I think the original is better.
Yeah?
I think just I think part of it just comes to this like that more organic, earthy. Like it sounds more 70s, the production on the 707 version, and so like the guitars just have just like that extra warmth that you get from a 70s recording you don't get from an 80s recording. The drums, with less reverb, like it just sounds more
Authentic.
organic.
Yeah.
And, as someone who's like, grew up loving like those 70s Ted Nugent albums and those 70s Kiss albums, where just they have like a vibe and a sound, and that version is closer to it, but also nerdier and doesn't have Ace. So, I don't know. This is a song that confuses me, but I like it.
Yeah. I always just remember this one, like, why is this on here? This isn't Ace Frehley. It doesn't even sound like Ace Frehley.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where like, yeah, Ace totally played on this
the
track.
solo. Yeah, I get
Half
it.
the solo.
I hear it. Yeah. Again,
Does
Todd
anybody
Howarth
have
was
the
his Paul
release
Stanley.
date on this album?
April 1987,
Oh, okay.
which was a solid, let's see.
A solid 6 months after 5150 came out.
A solid
Right.
25 years before label mates Lost Profits. Now, yeah, they were on Megaforce for a bit. Oh, man.
Man, how do you always end up on the
How
Lost
do we
Prophets?
always end up on Lost Profits?
Who the hell are the Lost Prophets?
Imagine if Gary Glitter didn't do glam rock.
The important parts of Gary Glitter's
Okay.
career.
Okay.
You know,
I
Alright,
can see it.
I guess.
the-
I don't think I want to.
No, you don't. You would go to jail for seeing it. That's definitely illegal to intentionally watch that kind of thing.
Okay.
Oh, subject matter and everything, huh?
Yeah, Lost Profits, the dude, like, very much sexually assaulted children and is in prison for 30
Why
years.
are we always on the Lost Prophets Wikipedia page for every episode?
Because they got signed to like 8 labels. They're connected to everybody in music.
Fuck. Okay, so calling to you, it's a great shonen anime theme song, Dragon Ball Z, fucking awesome. Bill, why is it great?
Well, and going back to the 707 version, the 707 version was great for what they made it for, and they did make it for the movie. It, like you said, it was perfect for an anime film. And what they did to it after Todd brought it to the band, I think it made it a perfect song for a rock album. And I made the reference to 5150 before. You could actually hear Van Hagar doing this song. I mean, it's it's not hard to imagine at all because the vocals are there, the great guitar riffs, the hooks, the solo, and I know that the first half of the solo has to be Todd.
Oh,
because
yeah,
there's just way
absolutely.
too much shredding going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would give the second half of it could definitely be Ace, but it sounds like it could have been a good filler track on 5150.
And,
And 5150 is probably one of my favorite. Oh God, no, do I want to say that? It's probably one of the best Van Hagar albums. I'll put it that way.
I mean,
What?
5150 is a great album. Look, Van Hagar,
Van Hagar is good.
Van Hagar is a really good band. It's just unfortunate because Dave Lee Roth is the greatest frontman in human history.
Right.
And so just like, this is a really good band that unfortunately is following up David Lee Roth, and that just sucks. But like, they're still phenomenal, great albums. It just, you can't follow Diamond Dave. That just, it doesn't work. But also that said, Van Hagar songs were in Power Rangers movies in the 90s, so also appropriate for like anime themes.
So I guess
The
Bill's
first
right.
song
This could
in
go
the-
with that.
The first song in the first Power Rangers movie, don't forget that.
Wow.
Yeah.
The skateboarding scene, and I remember that because I have kids Greg's age.
They closed out with Dreams. That was the closing credit song. They freaking played
Right.
Dreams at the end.
And so Megaforce
Yeah.
actually was the theme song for the sci-fi film Megaforce.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, that's why it
They
sounds
wrote
like
it intention for that.
It was for
And
the
the one thing
soundtrack.
I really miss Lamoureux not being here because he interviewed one of the guys from 707 that wasn't Todd Howarth. I think may have been the other guitar player. And I kept listening and listening and listening for when Todd was going to fall into the story. And apparently there's something there that he doesn't want to even mention Todd at all. He actually made one comment to the effect of like somebody else came into the band and screwed things up or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I think that some of the 707 stuff that I listened to other than Megaforce was vastly different than what Megaforce turned out to be.
So Andy, you ranked this as your number one. Are you a giant nerd and like anime?
What? Really?
Yes, totally number one. This song has the most throwback to the '70s sound for me.
More
Love
than
the
Stranger in a
chorus.
Strange Land. Interesting.
Yeah, no, this one just eked out "Stranger in a Strange Land" for me, but it's rocking. I mean, I know this is an Ace Frehley record, but this is Todd all over it, and I happen to think it's the best song out there. Like, I love the shredding on it. Like I said, it just moves. So I was rocking out to this one.
And if I can add to Andy's point about the shredding, if you listen to the verse lines, it's not just like chicka 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 or a riff. There's actually a full-on melody line being played behind all of those verses. And that kind of harkens back to where I was making the comment about Van Halen. It is the melody lines that Van Halen's been playing for, 30 years now. It's not just chunking a riff through or, just strumming a chord. It was actually playing a full-on melody to counteract with or to blend with the vocals. Exceptional song.
And that's also very common in like a lot of the Japanese like shonen anime theme songs. That's kind of where that melodic structure comes from. So that's why I'm recognizing that. All those cats, they were big Van Halen fans. So it's all coming together. But a strong song and one of those ones where I kind of wrote it off in high school. So it's one of the Todd songs. It's bullshit. You can skip it. But very strong and ranked number 3 in our ranking. So hey, good for him.
I never would have expected that.
Speaking of things not to be expected, number 2 in our ranking, Rock Soldiers, next on the list.
Nice.
All right, who's wrong on this one?
Oh, probably me.
I ranked it as
what you
number
think
2.
I ranked it as number 2 from the bottom. You guys ever listen to Carmen, the Christian spoken word musician who debuted about 5 years before this album came out?
No.
It sounds
That's
a
how
lot
I
like
got
this
hooked on
song.
the internet.
He sounds.
I
a
would hear
lot
that,
like
then
this
I'd go play on the internet.
because he said not to. That sounds like a Carmen thing
But
to do.
this
Like,
is-
don't
this-
go on the internet.
But Steve,
It's bad.
this is Ace's Christian spoken word song.
Right,
It's even
yeah.
talking about how let the devil wanted to do stuff, but it's like, nah, man, I'm gonna reject you.
Yeah. It really again. It's a Carmen song. Carmen songs aren't good.
But
though.
this one has bitching guitars. It's like,
Right.
what if Carmen had bitching guitars?
I mean, sometimes he does. Still not good though. Do you at least have like an awesome music video with
There's a music video for this.
with elaborate props and like
Just
Satan?
Pull up the video while we're talking.
All right, I'm gonna do that.
There's no elaborate props though. It's basically just band playing.
There is an army of guitar soldiers, though.
Yes.
An army of rock soldiers.
So this is. This song is weird. I ranked it. I give it 8 points out of a possible 10, so third place for me. I think this is an absolute standout cut of Ace's entire career. And it is awkward in the modern context, because this is Ace saying, I'm not going to fall off the wagon again, before immediately falling off the wagon again. So,
Right.
but it was Ace trying to make a declaration of, I am making a comeback. I went through some dark times, and I recognize that, rock and roll can be a very dark path. A lot of people die on this journey of rock and roll, but I am a survivor. And for the rock soldiers who have fallen in the past, I salute you. But for those of us who are still here, we continue on, we march on to continue to make kick-ass rock and roll despite drugs and bad mistakes and things. As a song, it is a little bit awkward in some ways because it's a bit of a lengthy song for what it is. But I think it's also very over the top and theatrical. But
It is
also
pretty short for a Carmen song.
But it's
Talks a lot.
But it's fitting that the guy from Kiss would be theatrical. It makes
course.
sense. But I think there's a sincerity to it. That is very appealing and has phenomenal guitar licks throughout. Ace is back and he told you so.
Yeah.
Followed by that great lick is just awesome. Great solo, great drums, giant sing along chorus. Just amazing hooks throughout. And I think it's interesting, the story of addiction. And everyone wants to make a big declaration that I have moved past my addiction. And that's really not how addiction works. Addiction is an everyday struggle, and you're never fully past it. And so when you make a big declarative statement like that, it's good in the moment, but it ultimately rings a bit hollow as you experience more of life. And so it's a really interesting song, emotionally conflicting in a lot of ways, but I think it absolutely is a classic of his catalog, an important Ace song, and a song that's hard to imagine Ace Frehley without.
Most definitely. I mean, for me, I ranked it number 2, but it's for the same reason. The story of the day that I was truly born in rock and roll, is the day that I got that album and I brought it home and I put it on the turntable and I put the needle to it and I cranked it up and started out with that marching drum beat. And then, that, oh man, just the way that rips into that guitar right there like that is like, holy shit, and it's like, and then it's a storyteller song.
Right.
And what you said, it's like authentic because you can tell this is coming from something that he experienced, and good God, the guitars are so rocking and heavy and the tone is so right on the money for what you'd expect from Ace Frehley. It's the perfect song to open the album because it kicks you right in your face right off the very beginning of it. And the solo, good Lord, that solo on that song is so good. And it's like a cautionary tale in a time when other people are singing about how fun it is to get fucked up all the time. You never really got those songs back then in the late 80s about, hey, wait a minute, there's another side to partying all the
No,
time.
because Motley Crue was too busy singing about, heroin is awesome!
Right, yeah, So it kind of came off as, you're out the show, you're drinking beer, you're having a good time, rock and roll. Here's this guy up on stage going, yeah, you're going to kill yourself, and there's
And you're gonna wreck your
consequences.
nice DeLorean.
Yeah, and these DeLoreans are rare. They don't make a lot of them, and when you wreck one, you really feel it. It's a hard lesson to learn, and one day it's gonna really hit me hard, and I'm gonna actually give this up for good. But to me, that song, Oh man, it changed my life. It really did, because when I put that on and that first guitar riff just ripped in right after that intro drum beat, it was over for me. I was like, I'm a rock soldier. This is what I want to be for the rest of my life. And that's really what changed it for me. And then from there, it was the reawakening with Kiss, but having something new, then Crazy Nights, and so it was a good time to be a Kiss fan because all these things were happening. And granted, I'm not the biggest Crazy Nights fan, as you guys know.
Right.
I like the heavier side of things. But, it was an exciting time to be a Kiss fan because I was young. I remember going to the record store and pulling out Dynasty. Dynasty had been out for years, but I'd never heard of it. And going, whoa, it's a lost Kiss album I've never heard before. And it was, to me, and running home and playing that for the first time and hearing like 2000 Man and Save Your Love and, being the huge Ace Frehley fan and then not having nothing for so long. And this is Ace and he's saying, Ace is back. And it's like, fuck yeah, he is. Finally, after all these years, Ace Frehley's back. And it meant so much to me at that time. Like I said, this album was a life changer for me, for the better.
Yeah, even me who didn't have this particular album, I had the 12 Picks album because I was trying to make sure that my goal was to eventually buy every Ace Frehley CD, but I had what was available to me. Rock Soldiers was on there, and I cranked it up on there, and same with Into the Night and the songs that I had on there. So Rock Soldiers was absolutely an important song for teenage me. Loving the video for this, also cranking it up. So yeah, it's a classic. A classic of Christian spoken word metal.
Well, you gotta give it to him. The lyrics are pretty damn clever in some of these spots in this song because there's a lot of double innuendo for drinking and your life and things. If the devil wants to play his card game now, he's gonna play without an ace in his deck.
Yep.
Oh man, so
That's
cool,
sweet.
so cool.
That's all.
Yeah, Bill, you rate this as number one. Go ahead.
Yes, I did. I really echo everything that Aaron just said, and probably what pushed it up to number one for me was a little bit of the personal nature of it. Now, and I don't want to be a bummer, but my father was killed by a drunk driver when I was 9, and I had always, you live with that your entire life, or you live without it, depending on how you look at it. And it disappointed me when I became a Kiss fan and I was finding out that, Ace was a heavy drinker and he was drinking and driving and doing stuff like this. And it's kind of like, well, dude, you were kind of my dude, And I can remember back to Circus Magazine again, where there was, when this incident that he describes in the song was laid into like a 2-paragraph section in the news section of Circus Magazine. And it's kind of like, oh man, he's just like a bum, whatever, and I still don't hold respect for a drunk driver. And then, this comes out and it's the first song, there's that drum beat. And he says, hey, I did this and I'm not going to do it again. And I'm not going to play that game. And I was like, hell yeah. I was all about it. So it's probably a little bit of the personal perspective that pushed it up ahead of me. But then, damn, the song just rocks. If Eddie Kramer was to make a demo tape of outside of the Kiss stuff that he did, this should be this should be the Ace Frehley song he puts on his demo, like a resume, in my opinion.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of bravery. As I was criticizing Ace personally before, humans are complex creatures. There is a level of bravery of admitting your mistakes and like not trying to make it cool, but just saying like, yeah, I messed up. And like you never get a song like this from Gene Simmons.
No.
Like admitting his mistakes. Or I went.
Yeah. If I could throw it in perspective real quick, Detroit Rock City, Paul sings, "First I drink, then I smoke," and then he goes and gets in the car, and I was kind of like, "Fuck you, man." That's what made me not be a Paul guy. It's because and I probably heard Detroit Rock City maybe a year or two after my father passed away, and it's kind of like, fuck you. And Detroit Rock City still remains one of my least favorite Kiss songs.
I can see why.
And I get
Wow.
that. I think Paul, in the defense of Paul, was writing from the perspective of the fucked up fan who went to go see Kiss, and not from his perspective. But it does make it come off as like kind of cool and glorious.
Right.
So
Right.
I get that, but you know, with
Well, and I don't take Kiss songs that seriously anymore either.
Right, yeah. He's talking about from when he was
look,
young.
I take
I
Bang
think
Bang
with
You deadly
BT
seriously.
Oh, well, that and Read My Body, of
Yeah.
course.
I mean, are the letters big enough? Truly.
They are. They are.
But you know, the willingness to like admit the flaws of yourself like in such a public way and then
Right.
try to move past them is something I do find to be very brave. Like I was watching the new Bruce Springsteen movie in theaters, and like there's like little vignettes in between each song, and he was talking about in one of the songs like, I have hurt the people closest to me and done terrible things. And I'm like, dude, you're like 70. Like, you've made your money. You don't need to tell us about the stuff you did where you fucked up. But doing that, I think, is brave. Like, when there's nothing to gain from, like, you don't need to.
Right.
Like, Ace could have just put out, like, a bitchin' hard rock album and everyone would have been excited anyway. He didn't need to do Rock Soldiers. But he chose to do Rock Soldiers. And I think that is something that is ultimately very brave to put out there. And even if ultimately it didn't work out, like he fell off the wagon, he fucked up, he went right back to this low point, probably got even lower than he did at this point. You know, the fact that he was taking those efforts to move forward is very human and very admirable, and I respect him for that.
When you put it in a
And
song
as of-
like that, it becomes timeless. So imagine over the years how many Kiss fans that may have been having trouble, recognizing it in themselves. I drink too much. I'm putting myself in bad situations. Hear a song like that and be like, man, if Ace Frehley can do it, and this song speaks to me, maybe I can do it too. Maybe I can clean up, my life and try to turn things around. Songs are magic like that. It hits people in special ways sometimes where it can change your life, for the better. So being that the song is out there, right now, somewhere in wherever, somebody might be listening to that song going, you know what? Ace Frehley's right. I don't need to be drinking and doing these things either. So that's pretty cool, too.
Yeah,
And as of like,
slightly deeper than
November
Love
10th,
Gun.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a bit, yeah. But as of November 10th, 2019, he's still making that effort, And the one thing I'll credit Nikki Sixx with is that everybody slips sometimes, Okay, so it happens. But that's the thing about it is Ace hasn't given up, and I respect him for that. And I also respect he has people drive him around now.
Hey,
A lot of
do what you gotta
Ubers.
do.
So, Andy,
Hey,
you
Charlie,
ranked-
we can't find the venue. Can you get in here and give us directions?
So, Andy, you ranked this right in the middle. Why do you not respect sobriety?
I'd say this is a good lead-off track for his comeback album. This is it's autobiographical, so it gives you a little insight to the man. But I have to respectfully disagree with Aaron that the devil's gonna have to play without an ace in his deck is just totally cornball for me.
Oh, wait,
Just-
that's awesome.
Oh no, it's like out of an 80s. I expect that in like a Die Hard movie or something. It's like from an 80s
Yeah.
movie.
So you mean an absolute masterpiece of cinema?
Right, Die Hard is
Yeah,
great.
well,
That
Like,
came out
yeah.
at the
we
same
will
time
not
as the
stand
album.
for slander on Die Hard on
In
this
this
show,
house, we
sir.
respect Die Hard.
But no,
Like, if
you
you
see-
want to rag on Tango
There
and
goes
Cash,
Andy's return
but
invitation.
not Die Hard, sir.
Good day, sir.
No, I just see that just totally out of some movie dialogue. Oh, you're not going to play with an ace in your deck, sir.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Right. I guess I could hear that, but I mean, those are always the cool lines in the movies, the ones you remember, the things that are quoted for years.
Yeah, I'm picturing John McClane saying it. It does sound pretty badass out of his
Yeah,
mouth.
totally.
But even in recovery, getting addicts to recover, they say they're battling their demons.
Right?
So
Again, a
it's kind of
Carmen
a
song.
parallel with that.
Yeah,
Well,
I love it.
Yeah.
In the recovery center down the road from me, they tell people that they have demons they need to battle internally, and so that's where that falls along for me. Back to you, Andy.
No, I'm good.
Right on.
So, Steve, has all of our praise of this song shifted your perspective on it at all? Or like, nope, still just a Carmen song?
I mean, Carmen's got good messages in a lot of his songs, but they still suck.
Yeah, no ripping guitar.
All right, well, we're at the number 1 song in the ranking, so let's go through the list from the bottom to the top. Fractured 2, We Got Your Rock, Love Me Right, Something Moved, Dolls, Stranger in a Strange Land, Into the Night, Calling to You, Rock Soldiers, but the best song on Frehley's Comet by Ace Frehley, or by Frehley's Comet, however you wanted to say it, it's Breakout.
What?
Thank you. I feel so much better now.
So I rate this 4th from the bottom, so I don't know how this happened.
I ranked it 2nd.
Yeah.
I got it 4th.
Mostly just because this song rings so true with the line about
Okay,
prison
wait a
food
second.
sucking. From what I gathered.
This is the wait. We've got this is number 1. We have 1-4. Was that right, Aaron? You voted
Yeah, I've got 4.
Okay, I've got 4. I've got 5.
I voted second.
And you got it second. And
Me and Andy
Greg,
put it
you had
correctly
it.
at 2nd.
Yeah, so 2 people put this in their top 2, and then the rest of us were like, middle, mid-high, mid-low.
wow.
The ranking's pretty tight towards the top here. This one and Rock Soldiers both got 35 points, but I tanked Rock Soldiers by ranking it much lower than anyone else ranked either of these two.
Yeah, so by our tiebreaker rules, Rock Soldiers lost because of Steve.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this is Steve's fault, sort of, but
I mean, Greg wrote the rules.
yeah, so it's my fault for these terrible, terrible rules.
It's an awesome song. There's no denying it.
I can deny it.
It's
Really?
it's no dolls, but it's pretty good.
Like, here's what I'll say about Breakout. So I obviously love Eric Carr. We just covered an Eric Carr song. So I'm a big Eric Carr fan. This song is just one good riff. And the melody that they wrote on top of the riff is not a very good melody, in my opinion. And so, like, that is a bitchin' badass riff, but this is better as an instrumental, as, like, car jam than it ended up being on this album. It's like the vocal that's on top doesn't work with the song, and so it just becomes a mediocre rock song with a really great riff. Or just, like, the chorus isn't great, the verse melody isn't great. It's just like it's a really great riff, and that's like kind of all there is for me here.
I can dig it. I can hear what you're saying. You know, this was originally written by Eric Carr and Ace Frehley around the Music from the Elder era.
Gotta break out before he can escape from the island.
And
Exactly, those two go together. I think Escape from the Island and Breakout are kind of take away the lyrics and Todd Howard singing it. They both kind of fit that Elder thing. Like, had Elder been an actual movie, that would have been some of the music maybe playing in the background for a scene or something. And so I can dig that.
Richie Scarlett's listed as a co-writer on this.
I think his is the lyrics.
Ever heard any of his? Okay, has anybody ever heard any of his other material? Because I really haven't.
Yes, I've got. Oh man, I forget what the name of it is. He's got a handful of albums out. Richie Scarlett's good. I like Richie Scarlett as far as like stripped down bluesy kind of Aerosmithy kind of stuff. That's kind of what Richie Scarlett's strengths are as a solo artist.
And I love him on Trouble Walking.
Yeah.
So I think where it fell out for me is the lyrics are a little lacking for me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It seemed like you could throw a little more story in there.
Yeah, it just for me, like, this is so like half cooked for me, where it feels like you had like a great start to a song, but it didn't have a full song. And so there's a number of my best riffs that I've written that's like a really great guitar riff, but I don't have a melody that goes on top of it. So those riffs just sit around collecting dust because I don't think there's a good song there. So I'll come up with riffs and they might be strong, but I don't have a song behind it. So I let it sit. And so this is taking what was a good riff and not letting it sit. And I think that's to the detriment of the song, because I think the riff was better utilized as an instrumental, later by Kiss than in this context. And so when I'm looking at this as like the song that won the ranking, I am thoroughly underwhelmed by it. Because, like, oh, the song that is so okay.
I don't know if I agree with that, though. I think I agree with the part what you're saying about it being better as an instrumental. You know, we heard it on Kiss Revenge and that version of it. And, you know, I think the lyrics definitely do hurt it. I think musically, you take away everything but the vocals, it's freaking amazing. There's so many little changes in that as it goes, and the breakdown at the end. And, you
It's
know,
a great breakdown.
even Todd Howard's singing on it is badass. That wail he does towards the end of the song where he just cuts loose on the vocal, badass. That's some Meatloaf shit right there, what that guy is doing.
It's
John
Prison Meatloaf also.
Prison Meatloaf, yes. Food here sucks. John Regan, again, awesome bass player.
Great bass
Adds
playing.
so much to this with the groove of it, the gallop even of this song, I think, has got a lot to do with that. And, you know, Gary Corbett, I believe if I remember correctly, told us that Eric Carr wanted to and was invited to sing the song on this album and play drums on it, but the corporation, with a K, would not allow that to happen. And that was something that really bummed out Eric Carr, because he wrote this song with Ace Frehley, and Ace Frehley wanted to include it on the album. And how perfect would it have been? How much better would it have been if it was Eric Carr playing drums and doing the vocals on this song?
You know, it probably would have been a lot better, because I think Eric probably understood some nuances to the melody that I don't think that Todd, great singer, but all the other songs he like had a hand in writing that he sang.
Right, and I think Richie wrote the lyrics on this, so that was a foreign song to him then too.
I think that if Eric had sung it, because like melodically it's more in Eric's wheelhouse, it probably would have shined better. But I'm looking at it like the finished product, like what I got. So if I take out the knowledge of knowing that it's an Eric Carr co-write, it's easily towards the bottom of this ranking for me.
Yeah.
And like it kind of killed the momentum of the album for me, because, you know, me as an Elder fan, as an Eric Carr fan, you know, and someone who loves Carr Jam, listens to it. I'm like, yeah, sweet. This is the version with lyrics. Oh, but it's worse now.
Yeah.
And that's a big ding against it. And as you're trying to get someone into this album and keep that momentum going where you're excited to hear it, this is one of the songs that, like, unfortunately put me off a lot of Ace's, you know, post-Kiss material, because I'm like, you know, just like when 2 songs in, when song 2 kind of, you know, flops and falters, that kills a lot of the momentum.
Again, too, you talk about like the people performing on it and what does it mean to them. Well, it really don't mean a lot to Todd Howarth, because he's got zero to do with the song.
Right.
The lyrics doesn't really mean a lot to Richie, because this was probably something like, hey, Curly, this is something I've had laying around for years, you know, write some lyrics to this.
Right.
You know, so it really doesn't mean nothing to him either. However, if Eric and Ace would have sat down and come up with some lyrics and some vocals to it, I mean, again, I think there's a lot to this song that you think about what could have been, or what it's got the potential to be had everything lined up the way it was supposed to line up, or if this would have been a song that Eric would have done vocals for on The Elder. I think it would be a way more revered song, because musically, the breakdown, the changes, the riffs, the chugging of it all, the way musically I love the song.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on. I think just like the finished product doesn't do it for me, but I think it's very close to something very good.
Right, I can.
And if you take the lyrics and you just peel them away from this version, just to separate it from Carr Jam, if you listen to it, it's just a rhythm track. It's just, you know, that's why John Regan shines on it, because it's his wheelhouse, playing the rhythm. There's no real defining melody to the chord changes that they're playing over. So you've got all the melody is based in the vocal, and there's not a whole lot of melody to the vocal to start with. I mean, basically, you know, the vocalizations at the end of each line, but other than that, there as a bare track, it wouldn't stand on its own.
Yeah, I can dig that too.
Andy, what do you think of this?
So I voted for number 2 just because I love the drums on it. I think Anton Fig really kicked it out of the park with this one.
Oh yeah, he shreds on it.
Oh yeah, I think it's his best track on the whole album for drum percussion wise.
And how about that time signature change at the end?
Shit,
when he goes into that pattern at the end, it totally changes the time signature. I'm not good with theory, but thanks to the guys at Shabby Road, I tinker with it a little bit. And I had no clue what kind of time signature that was when he changed up the rhythm on it.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll agree with you guys. I mean, the lyrics aren't the greatest, but I just think the instrumentation, like I said, the drums and the bass on this, the rhythm section is just killing it.
And Steve, you ranked this pretty high, so
Yeah, so I just double checked my rankings. Car Jam 81, I ranked at the bottom of that album.
of Revenge.
Yes, of Revenge. So clearly, the lyrics are what made this song.
Oh wow!
And I think this is an interesting example in that this was, Ace writing lyrics for a song and like pushing out of his comfort zone vocally, which I found kind of interesting.
That's where he didn't sing it.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess he can write decent vocal melodies if he knows that he's not going to sing them, apparently.
But we think Richie Scarlett wrote the lyrics.
Is Breakout on Live Plus One?
I think it is.
Because if you go back and you listen to that, Todd shreds on this song compared to the studio version of it. He takes it a lot farther, which makes it a better, if it had been the live track on here, maybe I would have voted it in the top 3 too.
Yeah, it's on it.
7.5 minute live version. Wow.
Super guitar solo and drum solo, I bet.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to that in forever.
Doubles the length of the song.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. It's missing something for me. I think just the melody. Hello, listeners of the show. You know how every episode I complain if the vocal melody isn't very good, I'm not that big on the song? We're doing that thing again.
I'll go back and listen to the Gojira episode.
Yeah, so it's that thing
that's
again.
That's actually one that I've skipped.
Oh, that's great because every time I complain about lack of melody, Steve takes a shot. So
Yep.
that's a classic two-parter.
You're actually talking to every episode since then has actually been my ghost. I just sort of haunt my studio and engineer for Greg now.
Yeah. But yeah, even though I'm underwhelmed by it, according to math, Breakout's the best song on the album.
That's wild.
So this is proof that I'm not rigging the votes, because if I rigged the votes, Dolls would have won.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't vote Dolls number 1, like that, I told Steve I was rooting for Dolls to win just because that'd be the funniest.
It would have been the best song to have won.
Right, but Breakout won. All right, the one that was co-written by another member of Kiss. Got it. Kiss fans, we're the worst.
Yeah, and the most nostalgic. When you hear,
But we're
this
the
was a
best
song
at the
written
same
by
time.
Ace and Eric, you're going to automatically love it because
Yeah.
you're a Kiss fan.
And Steve, being a diehard Kiss fan, ranked it number 2.
Right.
Not bad.
So, yeah, that is our panel. That is our ranking. Excellent guess. Where can we find you? Aaron, where can I find you other than right next to me?
Up on the stage at Rockin' Pod 4 doing another Ace Frehley song.
Doing Stranger in a Strange Land.
Why
Calling it
not?
now.
Yeah, why not?
Hell yeah.
Whatever you got, I'll do it. Thank you. And, of course, do the Decibel Geek podcast. And if I'm not doing that, I'm chilling out listening to Ace Frehley albums.
Oh, I hit the applause drop too early.
Give him more applause.
More applause, please. More. Thank you. Such a receptive audience. Oh, no, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on to do this because, again, it reawakened me to this album because it was something that meant so much to me that when I was young. I've listened to it a million times over the years growing up. And, sometimes when you got an album like that from your youth, you get older and you go, okay, well, that was amazing. That was a part of my life. And I don't listen to it all the time. But to do this, I pulled it out and put it in the car and been listening to it for the last 3 days whenever I'm driving. And it reawoken me to some stuff, and it made me a fan of the song Dolls. I've got a totally new understanding and appreciation of that song that I used to hate and think that's absolutely the worst Ace Frehley song. But now that I'm a little older, maybe a little wiser, I see the magic in it, and I appreciate it, and I like it. And I got you guys to thank for that.
And
You're welcome.
I got your perspective on escalating Stranger in a Strange Land. So it works both ways, and that honestly was the goal of doing this podcast, as opposed to us just making pussy eating jokes. But
That just comes along with it.
comes with the
I
territory.
jacked off really loud.
That's the next single off the new Ace Frehley album, ladies and gentlemen.
That's going to be great because Victor listens to every episode, so that's just going to surprise him right at the end.
Just all of a sudden, he's in this one.
That's great. Bill, you offered some amazing insights, especially with the personal stories and I know you've been listening to the show for a long time, so I'm glad we finally got to bring you on. By the time this episode comes out in 3 years, I'm sure your podcast will exist. So, what do you want to plug?
I am currently in pre-production for a podcast called Fangirl with a Paycheck podcast. It's with myself, probably, and my daughter, Britannia, who was at Rocket Pod 3. And we can be found at Facebook at Fangirl Paycheck Podcast. It's going to be a podcast about basically what millennials are going through, what us Kiss fans went through for years.
So, not having money.
Not having money, high ticket prices, Ticketmaster being the ultimate enemy right now.
Oh, yes.
Is a big plus. Current music, broad ranges. Of course, I'm going to throw a Kiss perspective as being the old fanboy. And then, she's a newer one. We went and saw the Jonas Brothers back in August or September
metal.
or something like that. Yeah. And you know what? They didn't have any canned vocals either.
Oh,
So,
Hot take.
I mean, is that really a hot take?
Yeah.
So yeah, the Jonas Brothers, a bunch of guys in their early 20s can outsing someone in their 70s. I'm shocked.
Yeah,
Right.
but like the super manufactured boy band
Yeah,
doing
no, I
all
know.
of their vocals live, while the hard rock band who's prided themselves on being live the entire time lip sync.
Well, now, and actually, there was live music. I mean, the opener was, I can't even remember her name. She was so forgettable. Bebe Rexha or something like that. And she sang to canned vocals the whole night. Her entire show was canned. But when the Jonas Brothers came out, but the Jonas Brothers show wouldn't have been nothing without the spectacle that Kiss brought to rock and roll. Fire, flames, pyro, the whole 9 yards.
And the band was great.
Yeah. So
And the band is great.
we're all very blessed that Kiss did a great job of ripping off Alice Cooper. But
Without Alice Cooper, there would be no dolls.
there you go.
Can't find it. That one.
So Andy, where can we find you on the internet?
Oh gosh, I show up from time to time on the Pods and Sods network. I show up on Ken Mills, the Podfather's Pop Culture podcast, and then I got my my homie John Lamoureux over at the Hustle podcast. I pop up every once in a while over there as well.
We miss you, John.
There we go.
that applause was for John.
Somebody misses you.
There's the applause. for it.
That applause is for Andy. The single sad applause was for John.
Okay. Fitting.
Right. And
Just
Steve, where
kidding.
can people find us on the internet?
They can find us at lipstickgeneration.com and anywhere fine lipstick products are sold, often with a 3-week delay.
It's rock and roll.
That's the perfect drop to end on. That's our episode. Bye, folks.
Bye.